All sports, all the time.
There's heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered. Legends never die.
This is the Spoken Podcast.
Hold your ears, folks. It's showtime.
I'm your host, Lance Twidwell.
Man, that kid, he can ball, man. He can ball.
Touchdown, Kansas City!
Patrick freaking Mahomes, baby!
Let's talk some sports, because that's what we're here to do.
You are tuned in to The Spoken.
This is the Spoken Podcast. I'm your host, Lance Twidwell, here inside the Starcade Media Studios with my guy, Trevor Twidwell.
What's good, everybody?
Episode 274 is in full swing, full motion. We're so happy to be here with you. Come one, come all, motherfuckers. We're here to talk some sports. It is July. It is in the dead part of the year when it comes to sports. We are still here. We're so happy to be here with you, for you to be here with us. We tell you the top, we tell you the bottom of every single episode. If you've not done it already, go to youtube.com. Hit us up on the Spoken Podcast. Hit subscribe, share, like, notify, all that fun stuff. There's plenty of things to be touching over there. Plenty of buttons for you guys to have. You're, one of those people that likes to have like those sensory things where you want to touch a bunch of buttons. Touch them. Touch them over at youtube.com/the Spoken Podcast. We have plenty of buttons for you to push over there. And if you guys would be so kind, also get into the chat, get into the live chat. We would love to interact with you guys today. All things sports, all the time. As you guys know, that's our motto around here. Closing in on 300 episodes. We're also closing in on 500 subscribers on YouTube. I know that may not sound like a lot to a lot of you. There's a lot of other shows out there that have had that number for a long time and have far more than that. We are who we are, and we're growing the way that we grow, and we stay true to that. So we would appreciate it greatly as you guys just help us hit that next milestone so we can hit the milestone after that and the milestone after that. We got good things coming here, guys. We have a great show for you guys. I hope you guys are ready for it. As you can clearly tell, it's no longer a solo act here today like we had last week. I thought last week was pretty fun. We had a good time together, guys. It was a good hour and some change.
Had a nice little hiatus.
But it's a good, yes, the anus is back because the anus is sitting across from me. Welcome back, Trevor Twidwell, guys. Trevor, how was your weekend last week with the kiddos?
It's awesome, man. It was, I spent some time at Crypticon. It's a little get together for people that like oddities and horror stuff, and my daughter and me, we enjoy those kind of things. So it's always fun to see people, and my daughter's becoming a little celebrity. We go every year now, and people remember her. More people every year remember her more and more. So it's fun for her more than it is even for me. She likes to go, and now she wants to have her own booth there. It's become a fun little tradition for us, for me and her especially. Did that, went to a couple days of that, and then relaxed after that, and then worked some, and then enjoyed the 4th. I hope everyone's safe from the 4th. Everyone's alive, has all their phalanges and their digits. But yeah, enjoyed the 4th. Had some good time with some people that I've known for a long time. Other than that, man, it's good to be back, bro. It
was a good 4th. I hope you guys had a safe 4th. Hopefully nobody went JPP on themselves in this one. Man. You guys kept it all together, kept all the digits, kept all your extremities. And, hopefully none of you guys were the guys that were shooting AR-15s across the yard from where we were. That wasn't really fun. If it was, can you go ahead and contact us so you and I can throw blows? There were kids out there. You guys can quit being dicks. But the point is, we had a great time. I hope you guys had a great time. But we've definitely missed you guys throughout the week. Like I said, we have not been able to interact as much because, let's be real, the content isn't really there right now. We're not talking about a lot of stuff. Trust me when I say, though, guys, once training camp starts to pop off, Trevor and I will have plenty to talk about, plenty to discuss. I know you guys will have plenty of questions, concerns, takes, comments, whatever you guys have for us. But in the meantime, still get in the chat today because, like I said, guys, we have a segment every single day where it's called Speak It, where you guys jump in, you guys take over, questions, whatever you guys have for us, man. Let us know what you guys want to talk about, because even though it's a little bit of the dead part of the year, there's still things we can definitely talk about, which is the whole point of why we're here today. And we're going to definitely be doing that. I want to shout out everybody that's already in the chat. Dustin, obviously, at the top, saying he wishes everybody, I hope everybody had a great 4th. Yep. Ruby Cruz is in the chat. Shout out to you guys, man, for being here already. We really appreciate you guys being here already. And like I said, guys, we'll be posting your comments. If you don't have questions yet, but you just want to make a take, we'll post it on the screen as well while the show is cooking. And we just want you guys to be a part of it. You guys be a part of the ingredient of what makes this show what it is. But Trevor, I wanted to start with something because, I feel like I repeat myself a lot when I talk about this, but I like the fact that I'm on another show now earlier in the week because it kind of gives me like this this warm up of what I want to do with the Spoken on Saturdays. And what I'm talking about is on Tuesdays, guys. I do a show. If you haven't heard, it's on It's called Arrowhead Allies. It's a sister show on Starcade Media, and I do it actually with the founders of Starcade Media, Noah Groniger, Clint Switzer. I'm also with my good buddy Shaggy Shane Williams, my boy from Hot 103 Jams, Brian B. Shinen, and we always have incredible guests. This week we had 𝚂𝙿𝙸𝚂 on. I never thought in my life I would be able to have a conversation with 𝚂𝙿𝙸𝙀, and he is one of the coolest old men I've ever met in my life. Absolutely loved the conversation. I even went back and watched the entire episode myself just because I enjoyed the conversation so much. How awesome, how bright, how vibrant this man is. He's in his 70s, and he just had so much life to him. And I really just appreciated him in the fact that he answered all of our questions so eloquently, and he really took his time to expand on the thought of what he wanted to say in response. And it was really cool. And, that got me fired up for this week, man, because I've told you guys numerous times, and I said that I feel like I'm repeating myself sometimes on the show because you guys know over the last couple of years, there's been some things that I've been really burning on when it comes to the Chiefs, and there's these problems I have, this issue I have with the way Brett Veach has made some decisions, and I think sometimes that got kind of old with some of the people that have been following what we do here. This offseason has been way different for me because of the fact that there hasn't been that much to really burn on, and I've just instead been really just sitting back and enjoying what this offseason has been. Because, guys, the Chiefs are the first team in 2 decades to repeat as champions. And as hard and as difficult as this last season was for the Chiefs to still win the Super Bowl, I've had to just really take a step back and take a breath and just enjoy what that was. Because in most regards, the Chiefs should not have won the Super Bowl last year. And being back-to-back champs, man, there's this certain level of satisfaction that comes with that, even when you disagree on some of the ways that the Chiefs go about things. At the end, when the end result is what the end result is and was, it's really hard to sit here the next offseason and just really bicker and complain about things or talk about things the same way I normally have. That's not to say that there aren't things that I still very much disagree with. You guys do know that I'm very worried still about the wide receiver room, but that doesn't shock you. That doesn't worry you guys, I'm sure. I'm sure that's not news to you. And that will be something we discuss if, in fact, it plays a factor in this season like it did last season, or at least close to what it did last season. The thing about this offseason, though, Trevor, is that I feel like I either go one way or another. I either am the guy that people deem as defiant, wants to cause shits, or cause drama, or I'm the guy that's leaning in and defending the players, defending the team. And that's the side I find myself on this week because I don't think enough people are really giving praise and credit to certain individuals on this team that are the largest cogs to what this team is. So the biggest causes for why this team is winning the way they are. For instance, I want to start here with Chris Jones. So we know that Chris Jones turned 30 years old this week. Yep. Happy birthday to Chris Jones, the great Chris Jones. We appreciate everything this man has done. But I think that a lot of times it gets slipped under the cracks as far as how great this guy really is. And today I want to take just a brief moment here and kind of talk about that because I don't know if you guys know, his rookie season was in 2016. In his rookie season, he only had 2 sacks. Had a decent year as a rookie, but
not much opportunity.
Not a lot of opportunity. He was in and out of the lineup a lot of times. He was still really getting his feet wet. And then in 2017, he just took off. And from that moment on, he's never really looked back. And now we're looking at Chris Jones as a guy that could potentially be the second greatest pass rusher in the history of the Chiefs and make himself a first ballot Hall of Famer. In my opinion, if Chris Jones was to retire this today, and God, I hope that would never happen. But let's say Chris Jones said, you know what, guys, I'm just done. I thought I was going to play this year. I'm just done. I still think Chris Jones makes the Hall of Fame for what he's done. Helped the team win 3 Super Bowls, back-to-back Super Bowls, was the best defensive player on all 3 of those Super Bowl teams. I think Chris Jones makes the Hall of Fame. For sure as hell is going to make the Chiefs Hall of Fame. That's not even a question. Yeah. But I think that now Chris Jones is playing with what somewhere close, not exactly the same place, but somewhere close to where Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes are starting to play as well. Now they're starting to face the ghosts, if you will. Like we all know, and we're going to talk about it in a second. Patrick Mahomes he's only got one competitor, and that's Tom Brady. There's nobody in the current landscape that compares to Patrick Mahomes. Nobody. You cannot name me a quarterback right now that's even in the same stratosphere as Patrick Mahomes. There's some really good quarterbacks in this league, and I gave you guys my top 10 quarterback list last week, and I'm going to get Trevor's thoughts on it in just a second. But there is nobody, and I mean nobody, that comes close to what Patrick Mahomes is, legacy-wise, just ability-wise. I don't think there's anybody that comes close consistently. So we know who he's going against. We know who Travis Kelce's going against. It's not really even against other tight ends. It's Jerry Rice. Now he's going up against the upper echelon of receivers, not tight ends. We're talking about the historics of guys that caught passes for a living. That's where Travis Kelce now is. I look at Chris Jones in the same light as far as his predecessors, the guys that came before him, the legacy builders that came before him. And if we can throw that chart up here real quick, Trevor, let's look at this real quick of Chris Jones from an historic standpoint. So before turning the age of 30, these are where these historic players were at defensive tackle. These defensive tackles and where they were on sacks. As you can see right there, Chris Jones is dominating his competition. Now, everybody asks, well, where's Aaron Donald? Well, Aaron Donald has more sacks than Chris Jones because Aaron Donald's better than Chris Jones. So I'm not trying to make a comparison between him and Aaron Donald. But these are guys that you can adequately compare Chris Jones to from an historic standpoint. I mean, Cortez Kennedy was one of the greatest defensive tackles of all time. And Chris Jones, before turning the age of 30, has almost 30 more sacks than Cortez Kennedy did at this point. Think about how insane that is. I know people try to tell me that Joe Green's numbers weren't official, but they still have numbers down from all the way from the beginning of his career. I'm going to believe Pro Football Reference, they got it accurate. And he's got 25 and a half fewer than Chris Jones. Warren Sapp is one of those dominating figures in the history of this league. This man used to wreck shop, used to single-handedly change games. 11 fewer sacks by the age of 30 than Chris Jones. John Randall wasn't human. Asking our guy, Jason Dunn, I'm ironically wearing Chief Concern shirt today in support of our guys over there. Jason Dunn gave stories about John Randall and his strength and how unbelievably strong this ox of a human was. Chris Jones has 5.5 more sacks to this point of his career. I really hope we understand what we're seeing here from Chris Jones. This is why, and I'm not trying to bring it all back up, but a lot of you, let's just be real. We got to own it when we own it. A lot of you were wrong about your stance on Chris Jones last year. A lot of you wanted the Chiefs to trade Chris Jones. A lot of y'all were sick of Chris Jones. All he cares about is money. Why can't he be like Travis Kelce and just be a team guy? If you've seen anything from Chris Jones over the last better part of this decade, you would know that is exactly who Chris Jones is. He loves this team vehemently. He loves this franchise vehemently. He loves everything that is Chiefs related with everything in his being. And he meant it when he told y'all, I'm not playing for another team. He just wanted to get paid. And what ended up happening, guys, through all the jokes and speculation and criticisms and all the fans that were done with Chris Jones, what ended up happening? The Chiefs still gave him exactly what he wanted. Because the Chiefs, like Trevor and I both sitting here right now, knew his value. Which is why I never budged about Chris Jones and whether he was going to get his money or not. It was just a matter of when. And now we know why. Now we understand why. Because we know that Chris Jones, according to those numbers, is as good as it gets. Outside of a unicorn and Aaron Donald, you can make the comparison to any other all-time defensive tackle and say Chris Jones is better. Literally. He's one of the most versatile defenders we've ever seen play at the line of scrimmage. Ever. One of the most fierce competitors, one of the most universally dominant figures we've seen at the defensive line in the history of this game. And he just turned 30. How much longer he's going to be dominant, how much longer of a great player he's going to be, I don't know. All I do know is we've seen this guy help this team win 3 Super Bowls already, and they are in prime position to do it for a third straight year. And one of the biggest reasons why that is because Chris Jones is on their side. So, Trev, look, you see these numbers, man. You see the way Chris Jones has played. You and I have been on the exact same side of this all along when it came to Chris Jones and the longevity of, you know, his value and what he means to this franchise moving forward, not just in the present, but in the future. I mean, do you think, because right now he's on pace, if he keeps his numbers right now, he averages 9.4 sacks per season in his career. He keeps that going for another 3 years, he's going to have over 103 sacks by the time he's 33. If he averages from what he's averaged since 2017, which is 10.5 sacks, which is right around 11, you know, that we rounded off, he's going to have almost 110 sacks in the next 3 years for his career. I mean, Trevor, I don't think he's going to catch Derek Thomas. Yeah. Derek Thomas, I think, has 126.5. But to think that he could narrow that gap between under 20 with Derek Thomas, an outside rusher who's one of the greatest of all time, as an interior presence, if he can get within 18 to 15 sacks of Derek Thomas in fewer years, or just the same amount of years, that's unbelievable, man.
And at that position, like you said, like his position, the nose guard or nose tackle position, man, I've said it on the show before. I think Chris Jones has an opportunity to go down as the best defensive player in Chiefs history. And I know Derek Thomas is near and dear to the hearts of this city, and what he did. It's such a short career, honestly, for what it could have been and what more he could have done, but it was cut short nonetheless, right? And I think Chris Jones' longevity, possible longevity here, and the success that has come with the dominance that he has portrayed, and the leadership that he has portrayed in this locker room on this team, you know, contributing massively to these championships that we've won. And he's, like I said, he's played a massive part in these. Obviously, if, you know, Derek Thomas played in this era and, you know, he was a part of this team with Mahomes and Andy Reid, obviously he contributed to it as well. But it is what it is. The situation is what it is. And I think Chris Jones has an opportunity to go down as not only one of the best at his position in NFL history, I believe. We saw that you already showed the numbers, you showed the stats and the trajectory he's on. Averaging 9.5 sacks for the next 2-3 seasons is going to be tough for him, and that's a tough thing to do at that position. It's not like he hasn't done it before. He's had 15 plus sacks in seasons, you know, so this is something he can definitely do. And he's shown no real sign of slowing down. He's had a nagging knee issue for a while, but he's always wore the brace and he's always performed at a high level. There is always that point of the guys like this' careers where they start to kind of decline. He hasn't yet shown that yet. I know he just hit 30. The year 30 doesn't scare me. It shouldn't scare anybody anymore with today's athletes and the way that they recover and the sports science that we have. Guys are playing longer now. Outside of massive, you know, freak injuries that take guys out of the game, if these guys stay clean and they take care of themselves, these guys can play for a long time, even at these kinds of rugged positions. And especially if this line develops more and more around him, that's going to give him more opportunity. Obviously, he creates opportunity for everyone else more than anybody on this defensive line. But, you know, if Felix becomes something, you know, if George takes another step this season, that's just going to create more opportunity for Chris Jones to thrive and continue to make it his job easier and him making their job easier at the same time, simultaneously. So Chris Jones has a unique path here, man, to where he had a slow start in his career, but he's been so damn dominant since then, since after his rookie year and, you know, really hitting that second year stride, and getting his opportunity and never really looked back. It's a hell of a career he's had so far, man. And at 30, I don't think it's slowing Chris Jones down at all. And I think he's still wanting to collect more rings and create a forever legacy, not just in Kansas City, but in the NFL, and leaving his mark. And I think he's doing just that. So
couldn't have said it better myself. And, you know, and when you talk about the sustainability or the ability to continue to play deep into his career, at this point, Trevor, I think we can all agree that Chris Jones is more the exception to the rule than the norm, right? He stands out from the rest. If you look at the guys that he gets compared to from a physical standpoint or just from a production standpoint, you know, you're talking about like Reggie White, you talk about John Randall, you talk about Warren Sapp, guys like that. I mean, Warren Sapp played till he was 35. John Randall played till he was 36. Reggie White played till he was 39. Like, these guys, some of these dudes are just
And that was
unicorns.
back then.
You're right. Some of these dudes are unicorns, and they can play for long periods of time, play 15, 16, 17 seasons. And I think that's who Chris Jones is. I think as long as he wants to play, as long as he's got that drive and that fire and that zeal to keep going, I think he's that dude. I don't think he's going to be one of those guys that just gets washed because he's just too physically gifted. He's been healthy his whole career. I just don't see any way for him to really slow down other than if it's a mental thing where he's like, you know what? I've won 4 or 5 Super Bowls. I'm 33, 34 years old. I've made a ton of freaking money.
He seems like the guy that's not going to go out until like he has some kind of injury and it's not worth it to keep going.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like his body starts to finally shut down.
He's a football guy through and through, man. Just like Travis Kelce. I think they're both the same guy. They had that same mentality on opposite sides of the ball, bro. So it's gonna be a weird day when Chris Jones ain't playing football for the Chiefs anymore. So I'm not ready for that, but I can see a solid 4 or 5 more seasons out of this guy for sure. I can see him playing until 35, 36.
Let us know in the chat what you guys think. Do you guys think that Chris Jones is gonna be one of those dudes that plays kind of like a Reggie White, where he plays deep into his 30s, or do you think that the Chiefs get 12, 13 years out of Chris Jones? And that's a career. And honestly, that's great work. That's Hall of Fame material right there. But which side do you guys think this is gonna go? We'd love to hear from you guys on that one. We'll put it on the screen. But yeah, shout out to Lonnie. He said, "Yo, my guys, hope all is well." We got some questions here we'll hold on to. Gilbert Johnson says, "Love the show." We appreciate you, Gilbert. Thank you for being here today, brother. We really do appreciate it. Tell your friends about us. But I want to transition though, Trevor, because we can keep it on the screen though when it comes to Chris Jones. If anybody has opinions on how they see his career going, but I want to move to another all-time great for the Chiefs because I think that there needs to be a reminder about this one. See, when it comes to Chris Jones, there needs to be more light shed on what he is because he doesn't get enough credit, in my opinion, from a national standpoint. We know this motherfucker right here does, but it's because of a lot of the things that are going on in his personal life. I think people need to remember that Travis Kelce is still him. He's still him. Make no mistake about it, boys and girls. And I don't know what got me so fired up about defending Travis Kelce this week, but I think just because of the fact that we're hearing so much about the person and, him on the tour with Taylor Swift and, I appreciate all that. People want to focus on that stuff. Me, not so much. I'm just more about the football side of things. I don't really delve into people's personal affairs. That's other people's way, but that's not mine. I wanted to transition the thought process back to Travis Kelce, the football player, because we know he's playing football for sure this season. He's under contract through 2025, so we know that more than likely he's playing at least 2 more seasons. I think he's probably going to play longer than that, but that's for us to decide later on. But I wanted people to talk, because I know last season is still so stuck on people's minds, even though the fact that Travis Kelce absolutely went God mode, like I keep saying, in the postseason once again. I think people still are worried about what happened last season. I think people are still worried that was an indicator that Travis Kelce's on a decline. And I'm here to remind you guys that he's very much not on the decline. Yes, he's getting older, and I've made the case a lot of times the Chiefs need to improve their wide receiver room because Travis Kelce's getting older, but it's never been because of the fact that I see that Travis Kelce is on the decline. It's because I want to see him stay where he's at for as long as possible, and the only way that is possible is if they keep him fresh and you give him other reliable assets to rely upon where he's not being used up throughout the regular season. And so last season, I think it was an indicator to a lot of people that, maybe he's, quote unquote, losing his fastball, as some famously put last year. See, what people forget, Trevor, is that Travis Kelce missed 2.5 games last year. By far the most he's missed in his career since his rookie season. Yet he still managed to lead all tight ends in yards and was third amongst all tight ends in receptions and touchdowns. So let me get this straight. And by the way, Trevor, he was 16 yards away from having his 8th consecutive 1,000-yard season.
Only didn't get it because of his choice.
Think about that. 2.5 games missed, and still was a leader amongst all tight ends in yards, was 16 yards away from having his 8th consecutive 1,000-yard season, which was already, he would just extended his own record, and was third in touchdowns and receptions. And we know the tight end position right now in the league is as loaded as it's ever been. The tight end position is as talented as we've ever seen it. Like, you obviously had your Tony Gonzalez's and Antonio Gates, Jason Witten's, but those were like the standout guys. Now, you got 11, 12, 13 legitimate tight ends in the league. Legitimate dudes that can get you 700 to 1,000 yards a season, 5 to 10 touchdowns a season, easily. And Travis Kelce, despite missing that time, the beginning of the season, missing time in the Minnesota Vikings game, missing week 18, still did what he did last season. I'm telling you guys right now, you're going to see the Travis Kelce of old, not the Travis Kelce who's old in 2024. Obviously, health is the major thing. If Travis Kelce is a healthy participant for the Chiefs next season, you will see him have 1,000 yards again, up to 10 touchdowns again, up to around 100 receptions again, like it never, ever went away. Because he's still got everything you want in that player. You saw it, guys. He had 1 week of rest, and they had to turn around and go to Buffalo, a place they have yet to ever play a postseason game. Everybody talking about Patrick was never had to play a road playoff game. Goes to that hostile-ass environment and does what? Takes care of business. Goes there and takes care of business. And Travis Kelce caught 2 touchdowns. Then turns around and does what he does in Minnesota. Or, I'm sorry, in Minnesota, Baltimore. To be able to do what he did after the season, everyone thought, oh, shit, that means he's done. This is the decline. We've all been waiting on it. We got the shovel, we got the dirt, we got it ready to go. And he goes out there and has one of his best, if not his best, postseason to date. And that, again, was without any true help outside of Rashee Rice, who was still learning the game. I'm telling you guys right now, I know Travis Kelce will be 35 years old in October. He's not getting any younger, and the time will come where he is no longer a great player. Just like Chris Jones. We just talked about it. But like Chris Jones, I think that Travis Kelce is one of those guys that can play into his late 30s and play at a high level into his late 30s. Because like Chris Jones, Travis Kelce is up there, and I think he's better than the Tony Gonzalez's, the Antonio Gates, guys of that nature that played at 37, 38 years old. So I don't think I'm going to need to convince Trevor to agree with me on this one, but I still want to get your thoughts on this, man, because I do believe because of all the hoopla, and I say that respectfully because I'm happy for Travis for all the success he's having off the field. I'm happy for him and Taylor. I have no animosity towards that. I'm just, from a football perspective, I think people have really forgotten just how great this man was and still very much is.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this isn't you're not gonna get much pushback or anything against what you're saying, man. Travis, my guy. I think he's gonna go down as the GOAT at that position. I think he already is personally. And what else he can add to this resume to make it to put that cherry on top. I mean, that's what lies ahead. And this guy has made it very clear he has no intention of stopping or slowing down. The whole Taylor Swift saga has nothing to do with his football career. That's his personal life. He's obviously got a career waiting for him on camera after, it's all said and done, and with the podcast and everything. He's got all these things that he could be doing, but it's his love and his passion and the foundation of who he is and what has got him here in his life, obviously alongside his brother and, being, someone to follow in the footsteps of. Football is the foundation of who Travis Kelce is and what has made him the man he is now. So I think this is something that he's one of those guys that you're gonna have to pry the game from his cold dead fingers, right? And Chris Jones too. Both these guys are pillar players for this team, pillar players for this dynasty for a reason, man. And these guys are the ones that show up day in, day out, are competitive day in, day out. May not have their best game, but they're going to give you all they got that day. And that's all you can ask for as a fan. That's all you can ask for as a coach and anybody who's running a football team or a sports team or organization, period. So Travis Kelce is my guy forever, man. He's been my favorite player since for a while now, since I've realized who this guy is and what I love about a player. He has all those things. And his growth and who he's become since his earlier days when he's a really hot-headed guy, which I loved as well as a fan. You love those things, but also you love the evolution of the man himself And he's become a true leader for this team and a guy that's going to be impossible to replace once he is gone. So that's a guy I don't want to see leave anytime soon. And I don't think he intends on doing that. So he is definitely a guy I see playing for possibly another handful of years. You know what I mean? So even if he, slows down and becomes more of a role player, more of a red zone kind of guy, or a guy that can, move some chains here and there and be that kind of guy. But who knows? Maybe if he's a guy that loses his step and he doesn't feel he's like contributing at a high level anymore, maybe he does walk away and doesn't want to become like a role player, more of like a veteran in the room, like a Mercedes Lewis kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That could definitely happen. But as far as performances, man, the guy takes care of his body. He's never really hurt. He has little nagging things every once in a while. Last year was the closest thing we've seen Travis Kelce like really, really being hurt for a whole season. Right. Granted, he's older, and those nagging injuries can turn to massive injuries over time. But he played through it, and he had his best postseason of his career last year while having that issue. So the guy's Iron Man, bro. And we saw his brother Jason. Those guys are just built different. Jason probably could have played more and more if he wanted to, but these guys are just built different, man. And Kelce ain't going nowhere for a while.
Yep. I kind of figured that was where Trevor would stand on that. And I want to hear from you guys as well on that. In the chat, let us know where you guys think this is going with Travis. Because, again, I understand the speculation of maybe the things outside of football. It may not even be the injuries or him slowing down. Maybe the things outside of football that are going so well for him will be what ultimately just makes him decide to step away. But I just... I listen to what Travis says, and I know that, there's a lot of times guys say things just to kind of ease the tension or the anxiety of the fans that might be worried. But when I listen to Travis, we played it on the show a few weeks ago about how he says that, when I'm on this football field, I'm still like a little kid. And when I think about that, I think that's how Travis Kelce's always lived his life, is being very youthful and exuberant. And if he's still got that when he goes out there and plays football, it's hard for me to imagine, even with everything going so well outside of football, that he's willing to give that up. Because why would you give up something when you don't have to? And what I mean by that is, if your personal life isn't bleeding into or conflicting with what you got going on in your day job, why give up the day job? Especially when you love it so much and the other stuff going on in your life actually just kind of goes in line with it.
Yeah.
Like there will come a day like where Travis Kelce's going to have to decide, like, do I keep doing this, or do I ultimately decide to step away? There's going to come a day when that does happen. I just don't know if that day is coming right now. And I'm talking about the next 2 to 3 years, because of how good things are still going with the Chiefs. That they're not at the end of an era. Like this isn't the end, guys. Like, we have to understand that Andy Reid, who is in his mid-60s now, just signed an extension, guys, to be the Chiefs head coach for the next 5 years. The next 5 after this season. So they don't view this as, let's give it one more shot. Let's try to get this 3-peat, and then we'll see what happens. No,
right.
They have a plan in place to win in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029. Because they know that Patrick Mahomes is just now entering his prime years. And again, I bring up the Joe Theismann interview that I did. We did with Arrowhead Allies this last Tuesday. Highly recommend at some point this week you guys watch that episode. It's only about an hour long. Joe's with us for about 30 minutes. First 30 minutes of the show. And I did intentionally ask Joe Theismann that question about, with Patrick Mahomes and the evolution of who he's become and what he's been since day one. Does Joe think that we've seen Apex Mahomes, and this is just who he is now, and this is the best it'll ever be, which is totally fine? Or do you think that there's going to be more to his game as he continues? And I really want you guys to hear what Joe has to say about that, because the reason why I bring that up is I think if Patrick Mahomes continues to elevate his game, or at least stay at the level he's playing, there's going to be so much more incentive for guys like Travis Kelce who age to stick around. Because I think if Patrick Mahomes is at the tail end of his career, I think these guys would realize that, the book's pretty much been written. We're in the final chapter, and we did what we did. We've won multiple Super Bowls, and it's been fun. We did what we did. We're one of the greatest dynasties of all time. Let's wrap up shop. No, they look at it as, no, man, we got like 5 to 10 more years of this. We could legitimately go for another 5 to 10 years of winning Super Bowls. Why would I leave? Why can't I get another 4 or 5 years out of my career? Why can't I try to win a couple more Super Bowls out of this? Because they know that Travis Kelce knows once his career numbers are set, once his career's set, he can't do anything about that.
Right.
So why not go out there and get the most out of it? You're of the 1% of the 1%, man. Go get what very few could ever imagine of getting and what everybody could ever dream of getting. Go get greatness, man. And I think that's what Travis Kelce looks at. I don't want to speak for the man, but I think that's the way he lives his life, man, because it's reflective. You see it in everything he does. You know, Trevor always says
that's their family, bro.
Well,
their family's like
yeah.
that. That's just how they are.
The hardworking people. When you always say that. I don't know if I said it correctly, but you say like you do everything like you do anything.
Yeah, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's what Travis Kelce's learned, man. Because I remember we used to hear stories because we have friends in the city and stuff, and we'd hear stuff when Travis Kelce was young. He'd go to get his car detailed, and the inside of his car was just full of trash and stuff like that. He was in his early 20s. I'm not gonna hold that against him. But what I've heard now is this man has cleaned up his look. He gives a crap about things he did when he was younger. He's modeled himself out for Andy Reid, and he's become a grown man, a leader on this team. He's a captain. Like that's the growth I've seen of Travis Kelce as the individual. I think that he's worked so hard to obtain and achieve what he's got now that I think he's not ready to relinquish that, because there's a certain sense of pride that comes with it when you have achieved when you've climbed to the top of that mountain. If I climb, Trevor, the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, I'm not going to just go right back down the hill. Like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to sit up there for a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what? Like, I fucking earned this. I'm gonna stay up here for a little bit. I'm gonna enjoy being at the top of the world for a minute. And no one can tell me hey, bro, we've been up there for 15 minutes. Your 15 minutes is up. It's probably time to give someone. No, man, fuck that. If you want to come up here and take me off this top, come remove me.
In that recliner.
Yes, come remove me off the top of this mountain. Yeah. Until then, I'm comfortable. And I think that's what Travis Kelce's realizing. He's at the top of the world, man, from a polarizing mogul perspective and in the football world. He's got it as good as anyone, quite frankly, in the history of sports, man. I really believe that. Travis Kelce's like the modernized Derek Jeter, where he's winning, he's at the top of his game, handsome as hell, dating the world's most famous woman. It just feels like Derek Jeter-esque. Yeah. And I don't blame him if he wants to stick around for a little bit longer, man. To that point, Derek Jeter played until he couldn't play anymore. He played until he was 40.
And just decided to end his career with a home run.
It's the great ones, man. That's what those great ones do, bro. Yeah. And speaking of the great ones, people are really, Trevor, and this is why this particular part of the topic is why I wanted to have this show the way we're having it right now. Because of this part. And these last two segments were the warm-up. But I meant every word I said. I'm not bullshitting y'all. This is real. But these comments right here is what's got me fired up. So we saw on ESPN's Get Up, Kevin Clark, a guy that I vehemently respect. I like Kevin Clark a lot. He's great. I think it's at the Ringer that he was working at. He's incredible. Kevin Clark is a very good writer.
Two first names, yeah.
He's Ricky Bobby style.
Right.
He's got a lot of talent. I really do like him. He's respected around the whole world, of the sports world. He was, in fairness, asked the question about the GOAT conversation, because now the conversation moving forward is, if the Chiefs three-peat, is Patrick Mahomes the GOAT? And I think that's more than fair to have that conversation now. We've talked about this on the show. We'll continue to talk about it. I mean, a three-peat. What more can we really say after Patrick Mahomes has already won an additional Super Bowl? Well, Kevin Clark had some, and he's not really a hot take artist guy. He's more of like in the Pablo Torre-esque world, where he really breaks things down. But I think there was a little bit of emotion with Kevin Clark on this one, and I don't want to accuse him of anything, but this is via Starcade Media right here. They have the full quote right here. Kevin Clark on Mahomes becoming the GOAT. Talk to me in 2038, which will be the year Mahomes is 43 years old. That's when Tom won his last Super Bowl. Mahomes has started the GOAT debate we didn't think was possible, but I don't think he could be the GOAT this time next year. That's impossible. This debate cannot end in a couple of months, end quote. All respect to Kevin Clark here, because again, I really do mean it. I really like this dude. And I've never really honestly disagreed with a lot of he's had to say. That's okay to disagree on things.
It's his right to have this opinion.
It's all right to have this opinion.
Sure.
But it's also my right to tell Kevin Clark that he's absolutely wrong. To say that it's impossible for this to be the discussion moving forward if this plays out the way that we're talking about it playing out. Because and this is the funny part, Trevor, that I feel like there's like a special pleading going on when it comes to Michael Jordan, when it comes to Tom Brady, the GOATs that we've had so comfortably for a certain amount of time. There's like this special pleading that goes on where we make exceptions and exemptions for them. But when it comes to the guys that come after them and play better and play at a higher level and do more in a faster pace and blow our minds by how much better they got so much quicker, it's almost like it's like clutching of the pearls. It's almost like, well, this can't end this quickly. That's what it feels like to me. It feels to me like Patrick Mahomes has come on so quickly because he played in the same era of Tom Brady that people are of the disbelief that the GOAT could actually be in the same era as the guy we already called the GOAT.
Yeah.
Like, that drives people nuts. Like with LeBron and Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan retired he retired 4 months before LeBron took off. 4 months before. So it's too close. Like if Michael would have played in the 70s, yeah, I think a lot more people today would be okay with, calling LeBron the GOAT because there's this big gap between their two careers. But because it was so close together, people are so hesitant to relinquish what makes them feel foundational in sports, because we think of all the things that comfort us. Like we look at sports as an outlet in this world, right? Mm-hmm. It's an outlet from the world, and these figures, these juggernauts, these big sports guys, these Mount Rushmore figures are what make us feel comfortable and why we love sports so much. If we have to remove one of those guys, it makes us feel uncomfortable, especially when it's so damn quick. And we're talking about Patrick Mahomes within 7 years potentially becoming the greatest football player we've ever seen. Not best, greatest. There's a difference there. Best, I think Patrick Mahomes already established that. He's the best we've ever seen. And this is coming from guys from their 60s, like Mad Dog Russo. He's already said that. Patrick Mahomes is already the greatest I've ever seen. He's already the greatest I've ever seen. And this dude, he's been watching football for 45, 50 years.
Yeah.
And then there's people like our age that are saying this. So I think best has already been established. Greatness or greatest can be established this year.
Yeah.
I truly believe that Patrick Mahomes can be the GOAT after this season if they do three-peat. And I don't like that Kevin is presenting this as we need to wait until he's 43.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the pacing, it's not even close to the same trajectory of where their careers are going to be at 43. And real quick, Trevor, skip to the bottom. I wanted to get to that one real quick because I was going to save that one for last. If Kevin Clark really wants to do this, let's go ahead and look at the trajectory of where Patrick Mahomes would be at the end of his career if he plays as long as Tom Brady does. It's the very bottom one. The very bottom one.
I'm sorry.
Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, the very last one.
Gotcha. This one?
No. It's the very last one of Tom Brady. Yeah, that one right there. I'm on a delay, so I apologize.
Oh, I got you.
The very last one.
Sorry, people. This one.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, there we go. That's my bad. So I kind of threw Trevor threw a wrench in that one. So this is where Patrick Mahomes would be if we're really going to do this.
Yeah.
If you want to play this game of, well, let's wait till he's 43. Okay. He'll have almost twice as many Super Bowls, 36 more regular season wins. Obviously, a ton more regular season passing yards. A complete look at the passing yards, passing touchdowns, completely dominating them. 20 more playoff wins. 70 more passing touchdowns in the playoffs. Look at those passing yards in the playoffs. 5,000 more, almost 6,000 more.
That's a healthy amount.
So if we really want to do that, like, okay, are we really going to wait till this? I'm not saying that Patrick Mahomes is going to pull that off. I don't think he's going to play into his mid-40s. I think Patrick Mahomes is probably going to play into his very late 30s, maybe to 40. It's very hard to do that for that long a time, guys. What Tom Brady did, I'll give him respect.
Yeah.
But let's be real. Tom Brady didn't become a great quarterback until he was about 30 years old. He was about 29, 30 years old when Tom Brady really kicked it on. Patrick Mahomes was great from his first fucking throw. Let's be real. This is why I talk about the trajectory is just way different. Now, if we could start at the top of the slides, Trevor, let's look at their first 96 games in comparison. I know some of you guys have seen this one before, but if you look at this chart, it's
a different game now.
You're right. Even though Tom Brady's best numbers happened after 2010.
Right.
You know, when Patrick Mahomes came in 2017. I mean, it's not even comparable, guys. I don't even need to break these down. And when you talk about accolades, Patrick Mahomes, outside of Super Bowl wins, which are tied, by the way, is better in everything. Every single category. He's better. Through almost 100 regular season games.
Fantasy points, that's all that matters, man. Look at that. Sheesh.
I mean, and then the next one, they're talking about, you know, before the age of 30 in their postseason careers. Got that one?
Yep.
Sorry, there we go. So how wild is this? Look at this, guys. Patrick Mahomes, almost 2,000 more passing yards, 21 more touchdowns, 1 fewer interception, same amount of Super Bowls, 1 more Super Bowl MVP. And it says, if you look at the detail, before turning 30.
21 more touchdowns.
Guys, think about this. Patrick Mahomes, this is before turning 30. Patrick Mahomes doesn't turn 29 until September of this year, which means he has another whole postseason that he can add to these totals, that he could distance himself even further from Tom before he turns 30, which Patrick Mahomes doesn't turn 30 until 2025. Think about how insane that is. He's already lapping the one guy that he's even adequately being able to be compared to. So I look, I don't want to open up the argument of, well, who's the GOAT right now? I'm willing to let people say that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time when it comes to accomplishments, because he does have the most accomplishments. But what I don't want to happen, Trevor, and I'm gonna turn this over to you, bro. What I don't want to happen is what already is happening. I don't want the ring counting to be what determines this, because that is an unfair and quite frankly, a flat out dishonest conversation.
Yeah. Because
if we're being real here, if you look at who and how they won, no ring is created equally. No championship is created equally, Trevor. Let's be real. Okay, because the Spurs beat the 2020 or the 2007 Cavs, who had a 22-year-old LeBron James with a bunch of nobodies.
Who was the best
swept
player in
them.
that series. Yeah.
LeBron came back from a 3-1 deficit against the Warriors. Those two rings can't be compared as far as difficulty, right? So no ring is compared is the same. Every single one of Patrick Mahomes' rings were more difficult or more on him to win than any of Tom Brady's first 3. And let's talk about this, because we've had scenarios playing it out there before. The offensive line's better in Super Bowl 55.
Yeah.
Who wins the Super Bowl? The Chiefs.
It's definitely closer.
D4 doesn't line up both sides. Tom Brady doesn't go to another Super Bowl.
Right.
And then maybe Patrick Mahomes wins that Super Bowl, and all of a sudden it's like 4-5.
Yeah, that was completely out of Pat's hands.
There's a lot of things here, man, like I'm talking about, that change one moment here and there. Now, you can't take that away, but my point is, there's a lead up to everything. And if Patrick Mahomes is able to become the first quarterback in the modern era of football to three-peat and win he has 4 Super Bowl wins, 4 Super Bowl MVPs, more than what Tom Brady had before turning 30, obviously, because it took him a decade to win number 4. You're talking about what he's done in 7 years, Tom Brady couldn't do in 15.
Right.
It took Brady 16 seasons to win 4 Super Bowls. And he never won his 4th Super Bowl MVP. So I'm trying to break this down for guys like Kevin Clark and people like that want to say that we can't have this conversation yet. Yes, we can. Because Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Tom Brady. Is he greater than him yet? Probably not. But if he wins his 4th Super Bowl and does 3 in a row, to me that's more impressive than winning 7 in totality when 3 of them were won because your defense was so damn good and you stayed out of the way. To me, that's more impressive. I think they've won 4 Super Bowls together in comparison that you could talk about, where Tom Brady would lead the way in 4 of them, but 3 of them he didn't, and that's not even debatable. I think it's being more and more apparent that Patrick Mahomes is steering the way from day one, whereas Tom Brady grew into the position and became a great quarterback when they went and got Randy Moss and when they started throwing the ball more and things of that nature. Patrick Mahomes did it day one, man. And setting records. He's going to have more yards, touchdowns. He's never had a season where he's completed fewer than 65% of his passes. Tom Brady's had 6. So we got to think about these things, guys. When it comes to the comparison between the two players, we can have that talk. And if the Chiefs do three-peat, I don't think the conversation I don't think the conversation is on Tom Brady's side anymore. I don't think the narrative is on Tom Brady's side anymore. I think it falls on Patrick Mahomes because, again, if you want to talk about ring counting, okay, 2 is better than 1. Who's the better quarterback, Trevor, Eli Manning or Aaron Rodgers?
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Who has 1 ring and has 2? Who has 2?
And
ironically, Eli got 2 against who?
Yep.
Tom Brady.
Sure.
1 ring is better than 0. Trevor, who's better, Joe Flacco or Dan Marino? Like,
Danny boy.
so we can sit here and break it down to the very microscopics of it all,
Yeah.
or we can just keep it at the basics and say, hey, listen, yeah, Tom might have 7 and Patrick might have 4 by the end of this year, but Patrick's only 29 years old and has already done more than what Tom Brady has ever done in my opinion. So that's where I stand on Trevor. I'm sure the chat's going wild. I haven't checked yet. I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, I love all due respect to anybody who talks sports for a living on the highest level like these guys. Kevin Clark being one of them, who's a well thought out guy. But I have a problem when people try to be like the gatekeeper of these kind of conversations. This has been an inevitable conversation for a handful of years almost now. It's the way Patrick Mahomes burst onto the scene and the trajectory and the accomplishments he's already has under his belt. The conversation's been deserving to be had. Like, this is a crazy conversation to have now. And how Troy Aikman of him to try to say, talk to me when he's 43, talk to me when he has a third of my Super Bowl rings and all this jazz. Like, this is, you're going to do this again? Why do people do this to themselves? Because this is going to be revisited and it's going to look silly in hindsight. Just like every other conversation, every other doubt of Patrick Mahomes. He's put all these narratives to rest. I love these things because, like I say again and again, whenever these kind of criticisms, or not even criticisms, but just like, well, let's pump the brakes on who Patrick Mahomes is. No, Patrick Mahomes is the best we've ever seen. Period. And now we got doubters out here again saying, see me when he's 43. I'm sure he probably thinks Terry Bradshaw's better than Aaron Rodgers then. Right? Like, what's the context of your GOAT then?
Right.
How are you measuring what a GOAT is? Right? Because does everybody need to play each other in the mid to late 40s then to be the GOAT? No, man, that's not how this works. I think if Patrick Mahomes wins a 3rd in a row and retires the next day, he's the best of all time. I think he's the best of all time already, period. That's not even me being a homer. That's no homerism. That's just a consumer of the sport and seeing what it is. Because, I mean, if we're talking talent, Brady's not even top 5 all time, in my opinion. He's not a top 5 talent at the quarterback position. He's the most successful. He's had one of the best coaches of all time. He's had a handful, maybe 8 of the top 15 defenses of all time in his career. He's had some of the best defenses of all time and some of the best offensive line protection throughout a quarterback's career, right? And an all-time, maybe the best defensive mind head coach of all time on his side. So there's a lot of things that have worked in his favor. I'm not taking anything away from him. He's been clutch in several moments in his career when he needed to be, and he's also been not so clutch and has depended on the most terrible goal line call of all time to secure one of his Super Bowl rings, and has won Super Bowl rings without even throwing a touchdown in the game. Right? There's been several occasions that if Patrick Mahomes ever did these things, I can only imagine what they'd be saying about Patrick Mahomes and how he's just in the best scenario and spot, has Andy Reid, blah, 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 or the defense saved him, blah, 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 all the narratives that would exist that have already existed for Tom Brady. People just love to forget. I think they're hilarious. But, contextually, I don't understand what Kevin Clark, because he didn't really specify on what his contextual argument is here. Because the GOAT debate can be very tedious. It can be very, so most people, I would say the casual people, go off of rings. And that's what it's kind of feeling like here with Kevin Clark. I'm not going to try to call Kevin Clark, who I think is an intellectual, a casual here, but this is a casual take. Talk to me when he's 43. That's everyone knew Aaron Rodgers was better than all the guys that were before him talent-wise. People were calling Aaron Rodgers early on. Could he be the GOAT? I mean, I still think Aaron Rodgers, outside of Patrick Mahomes, is the best talent I've ever seen in the quarterback position as far as throwing the ball and just pre-snap judgments and just knowing how to win. Obviously, not when it comes to the postseason. My guy, I mean, he's failed numerous times there. But when it comes to Patrick Mahomes in this GOAT debate, this is a silly take to me, man. This is a very Troy Aikman-esque, like I said, talk to me when kind of narrative, and it's just silly to me because all this is going to do is fuel Patrick Mahomes even more, which I'm thankful for. So continue it, keep it going. But yeah, that's a trash take in my mind, man. I mean, so what is the next person coming up behind LeBron James that's looking to, Anthony Edwards? Talk to me when Anthony Edwards is playing when he's 40. Is that what we're going to do with these? Right. Is that what we're going to do? Like, that's just a silly narrative to take. Or or Luka. You know, talk to me when Luka makes it to year 22. Is that what we're gonna do? Like, this is silly. It's a silly thing to do, and I think this is people grasping at straws. This is what it sounds like when people are grasping for straws to try to keep the Tom Brady narrative alive. I think most people, even most casuals I know, are coming around to the fact that Mahomes is better than Tom Brady. I think everyone knows he's better than him talent-wise.
Right.
I mean, especially how great he was so early talent-wise. The numbers that he put up immediately were just otherworldly. And the pace that Patrick Mahomes has created, I don't think will ever be replicated. At least it'll be very, very difficult to replicate. Those first 4 seasons were just unbelievable. And the accolades he already has, 3 Super Bowl MVPs. You know what I mean? Trying to win a 3rd in a row, and if he does this, that's just something that'll be unprecedented, something that'll never, maybe ever happen again if they find a way to make this happen. So yeah, man, all due respect to Kevin Clark, that's a trash take in my opinion.
Shout out to our guy G-Pick for joining the chat. Morning to you, brother. Wanted to get to a couple comments here, Trevor, before we have the final thing we want to talk about before we get to the people and speak it. Julia Gulia brought up something interesting. She said, Patrick is on record saying, when the game starts taking away from my kids, that's when I'll step away. Patrick might not have the longevity as Brady. Now, this is where I do agree with Julia, because for whatever the reason might be, I don't expect Patrick Mahomes to have a 23-year career. I don't. It could be because of his kids. It could be because of, wear and tear on his body. It could be for whatever reason it is. I agree in this that I don't think that Patrick's going to have a 23-year career, 20-plus years in the league. But do I think he's playing 15-plus? Yeah. I think, because here's the thing, and it's everything we're talking about right now. The quick, early, and sustained success that he's having in his career. If Patrick would have won, let's say, 1 Super Bowl to this point, no one's really calling him the GOAT. Like, we might make our conversations about him being the best quarterback we've ever seen, but no one's calling him the GOAT at this point. The achievements and the accolades are what are giving other people the credence to buy into this idea. The idea that the Chiefs could three-peat as Super Bowl champs. The fact they've never not been in the AFC Championship since Patrick Mahomes has been their quarterback. Things like that are why people are calling him the GOAT. I think we all agree here that Patrick Mahomes is going to win at least 1 to 2 more Super Bowls in his career, which means that he's going to have 4 to 5 Super Bowl championships in the next few seasons, which means that he will have 4 to 5 Super Bowl championships while still in his early 30s. From everything I know about Patrick, and I'm not trying to overstep my bounds here, so I'll be careful on how I say it. I do genuinely believe that Patrick Mahomes is an awesome father, an awesome husband. I believe those things are that is his ultimate accomplishment in his life, is being those 2 things. I genuinely believe he loves being a dad and loves being a husband above all. But this is one of the most competitive motherfuckers I've ever seen in my life. And I have to believe that he's in, season 13, season 14. He's got 6 Super Bowl rings. Well, even make it a little bit later. Let's say it's year 15, year 16, and he's in his mid to late 30s at this point. And he's got 6 Super Bowl rings. And he has a team that he could legitimately win another Super Bowl with and get to Brady. I have a hard time believing he's going to pass that up.
Well, I'm going to say this about that comment about what he said about, family life, work balance. That's Patrick Mahomes' way of saying I'm not going anywhere for a long time, because he's already found a way to balance work and life. He's already very much, everyone's posting their social media feed nonstop on a daily basis because they're the most watched family in football. He's always with his wife. Right. He's always with his kids. They're at every game, most games, at every home game for sure. He's always cuddling up with his kids and his dogs and his wife. He's about as family man as you can get. As far as work-life balance, he's doing it already.
Right.
So unless something drastically changed where we've got to play 21 games in the NFL season, nothing's changing for Patrick Mahomes for a very long time. That's his way of just dancing around that. I ain't going nowhere.
Right.
That's his way of saying that. So he's already balancing his time with his kids in football. Unless something drastically changed with the way football is played, the season is carried out, he's already got a system in place. right?
Right.
That's the way I'm seeing it. So that's how I took that comment.
And I think honestly, it bodes more, or it has more weight for what Trevor's saying than what I'm saying, because Trevor, in full disclosure, is a single dad of 2. So I think if Trevor can handle life and other intricacies while being a father of 2, well, being a single parent, I think he can understand the dynamics of what maybe Patrick Mahomes is taking on more than a person like myself. So I think that Trevor has the right intro vision of what we're talking about here, as far and the proper insight of what we're talking about here. So I think it's an interesting thing to bring up, Julia. And I do agree that he's not going to play till he's 45. I definitely don't think that's going to happen. Would I love it? Yes. I just don't think it. I don't think the chances of it happening are very good. Just for any quarterback, the fact that Tom was able to do it is just unreal. But I do expect Patrick to play 15, 16, 17 seasons at the minimum. I really do. I think he's going to have about as full of a career as any quarterback's ever had in this league.
As long as he doesn't let Brittany take any jiu-jitsu classes or anything like that, I think everything's going to be in place and locked in pretty good.
Our guy MQ10 had an interesting take that I want to attack.
Very interesting take.
He said, what's hard for Pat is that he's 0-2 against Brady. I think for certain people he needs to have 8 Super Bowls to pass Brady. For me, I would say 5 or 6 rings, 5 Super Bowl MVPs, 5 MVPs, and breaks every postseason passing record. Okay, MQ, I'm gonna attack this one as respectfully as I possibly can, because I really do appreciate you bringing this to the show, because I love when people bring this one up, because there is such an hypocrisy with the narrative of Patrick Mahomes being 0-2 against Tom Brady. For one, both matchups in the postseason significantly favored Tom Brady. For one, Patrick Mahomes, that was a second postseason game of his career, right? Second postseason game of his career. I think that was Tom Brady's 45th, right?
Well,
So
can I interrupt real quick? What would you rather be, 0-2 to Brady or 0-2 to Eli?
And that's kind of where I'm going, is that the disadvantages of when they faced each other, of the inexperience as opposed to experience, that plays a massive factor. One guy had an elite defense, and one guy had the 24th ranked defense in that first matchup.
Right.
Oh, and Patrick was still supposed to win that game. Yeah. But D Ford did what he did. It had nothing to do with Patrick Mahomes. Oh, and the overtime rules still hadn't got changed yet, which significantly favored the Patriots, unlike what it did against the Bills, or after the Chiefs beat the Bills a couple of years later, the same exact way. See, that's the first part. Second part, we all know this one, and people can roll their eyes at me all day long. Guys, Patrick Mahomes went into that Super Bowl against the Buccaneers, who they beat the Christ out of earlier in that year with the healthy offensive line, or at least a healthier offensive line. The Chiefs, from wire to wire that season, were the best team in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes should have won MVP in 2020. They had home field advantage, and I know it was COVID, but they still had 15, 16,000 people in the stands, and it was almost all Bucs fans. The first team to ever host the Super Bowl. That's a massive advantage with a packed crowd or not. They didn't have to travel. They were at their homes. They were doing their thing. That's one side of it. And again, Patrick Mahomes was out without Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz. They had an entire line of backups against the best front seven in the NFL, the 8th ranked defense in the league. Tom Brady didn't have to do almost anything in that game, and he almost did nothing in that game, and it didn't matter. Because it was a flag show on one side, and they literally, Patrick Mahomes was running for his life the entire time. So if people want to use that as some sort of context between them in comparison, it's not a context. Here's the other thing, like Trevor just said, would you rather be 0-2 against Brady or 0-2 against Eli? And not just 0-2 against Eli, in the Super Bowl. How about the fact Mark Sanchez beat Tom Brady in the playoffs? How about...
Imagine, bro.
Yeah. Jake Plummer beating Tom Brady in the playoffs.
His worst loss is against Joe Burrow, one of the best in this era with Mahomes.
Tom Brady's lost 3 Super Bowls to Eli Manning and Nick Foles. Think about that.
Yeah.
So we can sit here and talk about the records against each other when there's context to those two, and the fact that Tom Brady's lost a Super Bowl to a fucking backup. A backup. Nick Foles was a backup quarterback and outshined and outperformed Tom Brady down the stretch. Did the Philly.
Big Dick Nick, baby.
Eli Manning. Both those games, Tom Brady shit the bed. Played terribly in both those games. Had the number 1 offense in both those games. Put up a combined 31 points. I'm just saying, man. Like, if we're gonna start talking about records and things like that against who and who, all that, okay.
Should have lost.
Let's talk about Tom Brady and some of these tragic loss. He lost multiple times to Joe Flacco as well in the postseason.
Should have lost to the Seahawks.
How about the fact that everybody talks about, how Peyton Manning was a choke artist in the postseason? Do you know that Tom Brady and Peyton Manning faced 4 times in the AFC Championship? Peyton Manning was 3-1 against Tom Brady in those games. Like, we can keep going down this list because the only 2 guys that have ever beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs were Joe Burrow and and Tom Brady. And let's be real, all 3 of those games came down to things that had more to do with the Chiefs than their opponent. Patrick Mahomes had the biggest meltdown of his career in that second half against the Bengals. Joe Burrow actually didn't play all that great in that game. Right. He had like 255 passing yards.
He was to a competent foe, bro.
Exactly.
Like, it was Joe freaking Burrow.
You can at least tip your cap. Yeah. You can at least tip your cap to that.
Fucking Sanchez, bro.
So yeah, exactly. So we can keep it there.
Yeah.
Julia Galoo says Lance put down the reverse card.
It's time.
I appreciate you saying that, Julia. Yeah. So that's where I want to leave that because. I just think that Kevin Clark, again, I respect the dude. I don't want to attack him, but like Trevor said, this is a very casual take from a man who's an intellectual otherwise.
It's a prime example of people just remember rings. And if the rings are attached to you, people are going to look at you differently. And I get it. Tom Brady has the rings, man. But there's a solid amount of those rings that he did not massively contribute to absolutely going in there and winning because of Tom Brady. You know what I mean? Like, there's the Seahawks Super Bowl. Come on, dude. He's on the sideline celebrating when that one happened. And they had every reason to lose that game and should have lost that game. It was just a terrible...
I broke this down last week when we were talking about the best dynasties ever. People crushed me when I said that, first of all, the Patriots didn't have one big dynasty. They had 2 separate dynasties. Because you have the 01 to 04 Patriots that won 3 of 4, but they missed the playoffs in the midst of that. Then they went an entire decade without winning a Super Bowl. Yes, they were still in the playoffs. And they were winning and all that. They weren't winning meaningful games to the level of getting back to Super Bowls. Right. They won another Super Bowl 10 years later. That was the next dynasty. That's how this stuff works, guys. Like, we can't tell half truths here to better fit our narrative. Like, if the Chiefs won in 2019 and then won in 2026, that's not one big dynasty. You have to continually win and be at the top every single year.
And I think it's funny too. Like the pace that Patrick Mahomes is on is already way better than the pace that in the first 6-7 years of Tom Brady's career statistically and success wise, as far as like rings and MVPs and all the above. And Tom Brady went 10 years without winning another ring, and people were still during that 10-year drought calling him the best of all time. And people are having trouble calling Patrick Mahomes the best of all time, and he's already having a better pace. And you think Patrick Mahomes is going to go 10 seasons without a Super Bowl ring?
Well, again, I think
doubt it.
I think what it is this, Trevor. I think that people are okay with calling Patrick Mahomes the best they've seen, but there's a different conversation of being the greatest.
Sure.
So, like, this is why when we talk about basketball, it always confuses me because people say that Michael Jordan's the greatest ever, but he didn't have the greatest accomplishments. Bill Russell did. And in fact, if we want to break it down to even more of a microscopic level, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had more accomplishments. From an entire basketball standpoint, from college to the end of his pro career. So when it comes to greatness, I'm confused by where people really hold things. Is it just rings? Because if it is just rings, then Tom Brady is the greatest of all time.
It's a combination of the two. I think the level-headed intellectual of the game would understand that you got to have success with personal accolades and statistics. Those things, there's got to be whoever dominates kind of all 3 of those realms, right? So, like Dan Marino should be one of the greatest, but the fact that he never got a Super Bowl ring still kind of keeps him from that conversation, unfortunately. Dude is one of the most talented throwers of a football. He's similar to Aaron Rodgers, even though Aaron Rodgers has some jewelry. But yeah, I mean, those things do change, but the context always matters, man. Like, these conversations are so nuanced. But it is a 2-horse race right now, and I mean, some people are already on the Mahomes saddle. Some people are on the Brady saddle.
And I hope you guys are all prepared, Trevor, and I hope I'm including us in this. I hope we're all prepared for the narrative that's already been out there, but it's going to get louder as Patrick continues to win. And I'm telling you guys, I really do believe there's a better chance that Patrick wins 7 Super Bowls than never wins another one. I'm on the record
or
for
goes
saying
10 years without winning one.
Definitely that.
Yeah.
But I'm on the record, and I think I'm the first to ever say that. I think that there's a better chance Patrick wins 7 Super Bowls than never wins another one.
Right.
So as Patrick continues to win, I hope we're all mentally, emotionally, and physically prepared. I'm trying to get myself prepared in all those areas for the people that are going to say, well, of course Patrick Mahomes won all those Super Bowls. Look what he had.
I'm horny for it, man.
He had Andy Reid.
Yeah.
The same Andy Reid who had 0 Super Bowl wins before Patrick Mahomes got here. And this ain't a knock on Andy. But Andy we talked about this just on Arrowhead Allies this Tuesday.
Be very honest here.
Andy had an 11-13 postseason record before Patrick Mahomes. And Andy Reid was one of the greatest of all time.
That's a very talented team.
Yes. Got to a Super Bowl, went to 5 NFC championships. Awesome, awesome career.
Several Hall of Fame players on
yes.
the bro.
But he had an 11-13 postseason career with 0 Super Bowl wins, 0-1.
Granted, he was playing against he lost to some great teams.
But from 2018 to current day, the Chiefs are 15-3 in the postseason with 6 consecutive AFC title appearances, 4 wins in those games, and 3 Super Bowl victories. So when we talk about who made who, they made each other, man. Because it is 100% true that Patrick Mahomes fell into the perfect spot, just like it's 100% true that Tom Brady fell into the perfect spot for success. Because if Tom Brady would have got drafted by the Lions, you all think he's winning 6 Super Bowls out there? Hell no. It's about who you got around you, it isn't about when you get drafted, it's about where you get drafted. So yes, Patrick Mahomes was drafted in the perfect spot, but he still had to elevate a franchise that was cursed. This team could not win playoff games, let alone get to Super Bowls. Now the Chiefs are getting to the Super Bowl every damn year. What is the coincidence that it happens to be when Patrick Mahomes arrives? It'd been one thing if the Chiefs had gotten to a Super Bowl with Alex Smith or won a Super Bowl with Alex Smith, then we could sit here and say, yeah, it's probably more about Andy Reid, if we're being honest here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And it hasn't been. So they made each other. They've elevated each other's careers. So I'm not going to have this argument because that is what makes them a head coach quarterback duo. That's what makes Brady and Belichick the head coach quarterback duo. If you look at Joe Montana, is anybody going to say, well, I mean, he had Don Shula, or he had Bill Walsh, the guy that created the West Coast offense? No one says that. No one ever takes away Joe Montana's 4 Super Bowl victories. No one ever takes those away. Even though he had an elite defense every time he got to the Super Bowl. They allowed like 13, 14 points a game in those 4 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes has won 2 Super Bowls. 2 of his 3 Super Bowls he's won with the highest points per game average allowed by a defense in a postseason run. 25 points per game. And he's won 2 Super Bowl wins with those. So spare me with what Patrick Mahomes has got. Because what he's got is also got Patrick Mahomes. It's the same way with all these other great quarterbacks and all these other great quarterback head coach duos. You can't have it one way and not the other. You can't sit here and credit Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, who, by the way, have several cheating scandals, I might add.
Oh, yeah,
call them the GOATs. But we sit here and say, well, he's got Andy Reid. The guy that had a losing record in the postseason before he got Patrick Mahomes. Like, again, this is not diss on Andy Reid. He's the perfect coach for Patrick Mahomes, but we have to contextualize it honestly and not sit here and just dismiss the greatness of Patrick Mahomes because of the fact that he fell into a perfect situation for him to capitalize on. But he still had to capitalize on it in order for it to become what it's become. Because if he came in, didn't want to work hard, didn't want to learn things, we're not winning. The Chiefs are not winning Super Bowls here, guys. He's a really talented kid that probably shines here and there, makes some really boneheaded decisions. Probably, you know what? Honestly, Patrick Mahomes would have become the next Brett Favre. And I know that's high praise, but Brett Favre, in my opinion, underachieved in a lot of ways because he never really took the game that seriously. He never learned what cover 2 defenses were. He never really tapped into his own talent. He was just ridiculously talented. Got to 2 Super Bowls, won one of them. Congratulations, Hall of Fame career.
Back of his insane talent.
Yeah, but that's what a lot of people were anticipating that Patrick Mahomes was going to become that. But what separated Patrick Mahomes from the rest of them that are that talented? He is in the lab constantly. This man is obsessed with the game. He's obsessed. Brett Favre wasn't obsessed with the game. He loved it. It was fun. He had a blast. He was great. But there's a reason why he has the most interceptions of all time. There's a reason why Patrick Mahomes has over 170 more touchdowns than interceptions in his career. Because the man is studying defenses constantly, learning, adapting, evolving. Brett Favre was the same guy from day one to the very end. That's what separates them. And that's why Patrick Mahomes is going to continue to win Super Bowls. Then it's time for Speaking Trevor. Let's get to the people, man. We've been talking for way too much. I feel an hour and 15 is good enough. So let's go ahead and get to the people, Trevor. What kind of questions we got in Speaking, bro?
So right off the top, we got Justin Smith off Facebook.
Nice.
Do you guys think LRZ? We touched on this the last show I was on. I'm sure you. I'm not sure if you touched on it last week. Do you think LRZ will make the 53?
So I'm glad this is the first question.
Me and you are in different
Well, yes.
Sports here.
I don't know if we're in the different places. I'm kind of in a. Okay, let me specify. We did not talk about this last week, but we did talk about it 2 weeks ago. And by the way, that was the highest rated show we've ever had. Talking about Ẓaman. There's just something about his following, bro. So pay attention, everybody that's out there. I said on Starcade Media.
Pretty privilege.
Yeah. I said on Starcade Media, this guy's got the Peaky Blinders thing going for him. He's very proper, he's very nice, very sweet, very handsome young buck. Like I like the kid. I think he's got a lot to him. But I said on this show, and I said it on our Arrowhead Allies. To me, I'm honing down my expectations of what he's going to be if and when he makes this team. I think the only way he makes this team is if he is a guy that plays special teams where they allow him to do the kickoffs, goes after guys, tackles guys, because that's more of an instinctual position. And when you play a similar sport, rugby is roughly similar to football in the grand scheme of things, where it's a physical collision sport. I think you have to go with the instincts. Let him develop other things, but I don't ever expect to see him develop some big route tree and become a wide receiver for this team. I don't expect him to blow up the A gap and become a 1,000-yard rusher in this league. I'm expecting him to be a guy that goes in there and makes a big hit in a special teams play, maybe causes a fumble or has a really good kick, and it surprises the hell out of the Chiefs, surprises the hell out of the other team, and he makes plays like that. Those plays are pivotal for a team that's trying to win another Super Bowl. And I think that is what the if we want to talk about what a success story would be, that is his success story, is being that guy that can just make a key play here and there with his physical ability, because he's a physical freak.
He's big.
6'3", 205 pounds.
He's big, yeah.
Big kid.
Yeah.
And he's fast. He's an athlete.
I think he could be like a Kyle Juszczyk kind of weapon.
Oh, that's such high praise.
Listen, bro.
That's such high praise.
I know it is. And he's probably not going to be that, because that's a very unique style.
Yeah.
But Shanahan
he's
knows
one of
how
the best.
But Shanahan and Andy Reid know how to find those kind of things and get those kind of things out of those kind of guys, man. And I think he could become that. You know, put him back there with the running back, and just like they did with Juszczyk, and have him run a little wheel route out the side and convert those to tough third downs. I don't know, man. I think he makes this roster, and I think he become I'm not gonna say he's gonna become some massive weapon.
Yeah.
Because even Kyle Juszczyk, he's used sparingly. It's like, but they use him at the perfect time a lot of times, and he's good at throwing blocks. I don't know if this kid can really throw blocks. I don't know about that yet. But he's a big kid, and he's still young, and he's still growing into his man body. And if he could put on some more size, he's already fast as shit, already a great athlete, proven he can catch a ball, knows how to hit.
He hasn't proven that yet.
Well, I mean,
I want to see it in a real game.
Sure, I mean, football is different, yeah, I guess. But I just think he's a great athlete, and I think you give Andy Reid great athletes, especially young multiple minds of a great athlete. And he seems to be a smart kid already ahead of his years. Already has that gruely rugby mindset. I like it, man, and I think he makes this roster. I think he's here for a reason. I think he should be used for the kickoff stuff mostly. Honestly, I think that should be his the role. But I think if he makes this roster and they develop something, and Reid sees something, I trust the Ivy Reid, man.
After we had our guy Marcus Dash on the show from Chief Concerns, I did change my tune a little bit. I do believe that if I made a bet right now, I would say that LRZ makes the roster, because I don't think the Chiefs want to put Justin Reid in the position of kicking the football off and going and making tackles in special teams. They know how valuable he is on the back end of their defense. They obviously don't want to put Harrison Butker in those situations. So I do believe that LRZ has a legitimate role in this team, because I've seen him. He can kick the shit out of a football. He can.
I think he could be good. I think he'd be good with the ball in his hands too.
We'll see. But here's my thing. I want to. The reason I'm slow to that potential is because of the fact, like I said, I've seen guys, and I will give him this, that his dad did play American-style football back in the day over in England. I will say this. I've watched, this is my reason for concern, is to building this expectation of him being like a productive player offensively, is the fact that we've seen guys in America raised around this sport with the talent to do it for 20 years. And for the first 20 years of their lives, they're dedicated to this sport, and they don't make it.
Yeah.
They don't do anything.
But you agree that a lot of those guys should make it, and they just don't because they just don't get picked.
Well, or they're not good enough for this league.
Yeah, well,
and
obviously Andy Reid thought this guy is.
Well, I think my point is what I'm trying to say is I think that Andy sees what I'm seeing as far as what he could do for this team. I don't think Andy views him as an offensive player.
Okay.
I think he views him as that special teamer, that guy, that gunner, that guy that can go out there and make a big hit, make an awesome kick, do stuff like that, like the outlandish stuff, the stuff that doesn't really show up in the box score, but he makes a big play. Like, dude, the game changed that moment. The Chiefs were having a frustrating game offensively, and then he pinned that team back. Defense made a turnover. Chiefs got a quick touchdown, game over. Like, that's the kind of thing I think he does. I think he sets a tempo for a drive or gets the crowd involved because the crowd at Arrowhead's kind of, oh, shit, this game kind of sucks, man. And he makes a big hit, and there's a fumble recovery. Like, that's the kind of thing I think it would be what his success is. Now, because of your point of him being so young, maybe in 2 years, he all of a sudden, you know what?
That was kind of more my point. Like, what he could become.
I've noticed that LRZ's been running some routes. He looked kind of good.
Yeah.
Like, maybe he get his shot, and like every once in a while he gets a nice like 15-yard catch or something like that. I don't think though that he's ever going to become some top tier weapon or a guy that's going to become, you know, a starter in the offense. Because again, we're looking at this not just being an NFL team, but a team that's playing for Super Bowls every single year. The standard is so high. You have to be so good to make this kind of team that it's hard for me to give him that type of props when I've yet to ever see this man play an actual football snap. It's hard for me to do that. I have to look at this guy as what he is, a transitional player from one sport to another. I want to see what he can do in the minuscule things before I start saying, oh, he can become this. I just want to see him succeed with the little that I believe that Dave Toub's going to ask of him. And if he can do that, then my mind's going to start opening up to the potential of what he could be later on.
Yeah. I think that's the right approach, honestly, but could be hyperbolic sometimes. It is.
Can't we all?
Yeah.
I'm over here pumping up Nico Remigio, man. I don't even know if he's gonna make the team.
I hope they both do. Man. I keep these young guys. I like these young new athletes that are making their way into this league, especially when they're handpicked from another sport by Andy Reid. I love that.
And look, real quick, not to interrupt.
Yeah.
Look at the chat. I mean, so many people want to see this guy succeed.
Of course.
That's the thing. I want to see it. I want to see this guy become something because I think about how awesome that he's already, according to Marcus Dash, the third leader in jersey sales in Europe.
Yeah.
For football, for NFL football jerseys. He's never played a game.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if this dude gets a kick return or gets a touchdown. His story's going to go berserk.
Yeah, if he doesn't make the team, just make him some kind of coach, some kind of ball boy.
I think at this point, if everybody stays healthy, he'll probably make the roster. I think he'll be a special teamer to start, and hopefully work his way up. But we have to understand, Trevor, special teamers matter in football. And now,
especially with the new rules, the way
exactly.
Of course,
now it's perfect.
It's the Chiefs are always being innovative, bro, and especially since Andy Reid and Veach have been here. They're constantly innovating. They're trying to stay one step ahead of everybody, and that's honestly why it's been such a success. They're one step ahead of everybody when they came to drafting Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
You know that they saw what some people may have overlooked, and they overlooked certain flaws that were being talked about with Patrick Mahomes. They said, "Fuck that. His pros are way outweighing the cons."
Yeah.
And I think could be. I mean, I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes by any means, obviously, but I think this kid could be a fun weapon, and I think Andy Reid knows that. Dustin Orton, speak it. If you could switch two QB not named Mahomes and make each team better, who would they be?
Well, that's tough because I don't know. Okay, how about this?
I think Josh Allen's my answer.
Well, how exactly is this question being phrased? Because I'm trying. I hear it as you switch two quarterbacks for each team.
Let me see. I think he might have followed that up with something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think the way it reads is a little difficult, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, how I got it was he says take two quarterbacks, switch them from each team they're on, and those two teams get better.
Yeah.
That's how I took it.
We'll just roll with that.
That's a tough one, but and you can't include Patrick Mahomes, obviously. I would say maybe both Texas quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Like, if you put C.J. Stroud on the Cowboys, I think the Cowboys would be a little bit better. But because of the fact that the Texans are a team that are really young and maybe could use a little bit of veteran leadership with high upside, like Dak Prescott's, maybe the Texans could be just a tad better. I don't know. That's me making a case for Dak being better than CJ, and I don't know if he's going to be. I think right now Dak is, but CJ is going to. I think he's going to become better.
Yeah.
I think CJ is going to be one of the elite quarterbacks in this league. I can't do it with Herbert because I don't think Herbert makes anybody else better. I'd go with the Texas guys. I think that's where I'd ride right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I mean, I think the Raiders think Gardner Minshew is the answer, so we'll roll with that. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think putting CJ Stroud damn near on any team is going to make, most of those teams better. I think that guy has it. He has that it factor, especially in the clutch. I mean, the guy has completely changed the vibe of a Texans team that was starving, a fan base that was starving, and the whole Deshaun Watson debacle. Now the Browns get to suffer by choice with that situation. So I mean, yeah, you could put CJ Stroud on damn near any team, and they would probably improve outside of maybe the Bengals and the Bills, maybe even the Bills. Shit, he might be getting up there with who knows, man. I think this season is going to prove a lot of things for CJ if he can not have that second year slump. But yeah, I think that's a good one, probably the best one for that question there. Dustin Norton follows that question up with another one. Speaking or CJ, who is going to make up for our entire D line? I think he's saying as far as hold on, let me see. I think outside of Chris Jones, who is going to make up the rest of this defensive line?
Oh, well, I mean, if we're just going off the guesstimation of, who we know is on this team right now, I mean, yeah.
Who is going to break out, the next breakout guy for
the next? I mean, you hope it's FAU.
Yeah,
that's what you hope. As far
I think George is already
breakout
kind of there. He could get better, obviously, but
yeah,
Karlaftis has been great.
This team is that the front seven is established with a ton of veterans, so I think you kind of know who those guys are. Karlaftis is still young, so I guess he could still be considered that. But I think that we know what George is for the most part. I think he's gonna be a guy that gets 9 to 12 sacks a season.
Yeah.
Very, very consistent player, bull rush kind of guy. FAU is still the one that we kind of hold out on. We don't really know yet. We know that Charles Minhu, when he plays, is a very effective player.
Yeah.
Mike Dana is an established veteran in this defense that the Chiefs obviously love. We know what Turk Wharton and those guys are. Like, there's no real shockers there. So I think FAU.
Is Mike Pennell on this team still?
Yeah,
I think we brought him back.
And he's
right?
35.
Love
so it's
guy,
like
man.
we know who everybody except FAU is basically.
Yeah.
So I think it goes with that question. It's got to be FAU. It's gonna be the breakout player. But yeah, this defensive line, this defensive front seven's better than I think people give it credit for, and
especially at full strength.
Yeah, I like what they're bringing, man. Especially if the kid from Florida State makes the team too.
Oh man, yeah, and but like you said, it's got to be FAU because of the mystery and all the questions about last year. Why he wasn't really getting any reps, live bullets, and when he was out there, he looked pretty good.
He did,
but there was a lot of criticisms about us not playing him enough or at all. And I get it, that's warranted. I mean, with the first round draft pick, barely getting any playing time. But I think, if anybody's got to step up and show what they're made of, it's the guy we spent a first-round draft pick on.
Isn't that funny, though, Trevor, that people say that, but then people always justify sitting Patrick Mahomes' rookie year?
Yeah, man.
When the Chiefs trade up 17 spots to get him, and
Alex Smith was playing really good.
The Chiefs drafted FAU with the last pick of the first round.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here talking about, that isn't a good decision. They should have been playing him more. But then, Patrick Mahomes, they traded up 17 spots. We already know who Alex Smith is. Well, that's a good idea because, it really mentioned Patrick Mahomes and becoming who he is. Guys, it could have been the same thing for FAU for all we know. Yeah. And there was plenty of names above him. It took a minute to miss the first 6 weeks for FAU to get real opportunities. And go watch that Jaguars game.
Yeah.
FAU was in the backfield all day long.
Quick first step, too. And I remember that was one of his criticisms. People were saying he had a slow first step. That did not seem to be the case. Granted, fresh legs definitely helps, but the kid, obviously, they've had him working on that inertia, that initial torque on that first step, and he looked damn good doing it. So I'm hoping that's something he can build on. Julia Gulia. If Wentz goes off this preseason and a team offers you some late-round picks, you taking it?
Yep. 100%.
Yeah, of course.
100%. Biggest reason why is because you have to believe that Patrick Mahomes is going to stay healthy this season, and I think that they like 𝚂𝙿𝙾𝙺. I think if 𝚂𝙿𝙾𝙺 gets called up as their backup. 𝚂𝙿𝙾𝙺! I think if they have to call up 𝚂𝙿𝙾𝙺, I think he would be more than capable of being a backup in this league for a stretch of time. But let's be real. You lose Patrick Mahomes, your season's done anyway. So Carson Wentz is a very capable backup. I think he's probably the most talented backup in the league right now. So I love having him on this team. But if there was somebody that lost their starting quarterback in the NFC, let's say, let's look at it. Let's say Daniel Jones goes down, they have what's his name from Missouri, Luck.
Oh,
Drew Lock. That's a bad example.
Played well.
Let's say there's some. I'm trying to think of a team that might. The NFC side of things in particular. Let's say like
the Dolphins need a backup.
Yeah, but I don't think the Chiefs want to help the AFC.
Yeah.
If let's just say like a mediocre team out there that doesn't really have a good contingency plan calls up the Chiefs, I do believe the Chiefs can get a 6th-round pick out of Carson Wentz. And you know that Brett Veach loves those late-round picks. If you can add another pick to 20, maybe even 2, he can get like a couple conditional late-round picks out of Carson Wentz because the value's there, and the Chiefs can literally just shut the door on that. Carson Wentz is only 31 years old, super talented guy that could have almost won MVP a few years ago. Yeah, I like that's a really good question, Julie. I honestly haven't really thought about that. Yeah. I would prefer Carson to be on this team though.
Yeah. I think that would be the case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's a good. That's a good question though.
Yeah. I think he makes a lot of sense to remain on this roster as a backup. We tend to find those. He's the perfect backup, honestly, for this team. So
yes,
makes a lot of sense. Followed up, Julia Gulu followed that up with another question. Jaden Hicks and Curtis Jacobs are my camp watches. Who are you looking at?
Well, Jaden Hicks is going to be one of those guys I think can be a potential breakout player this season. Yeah. A guy that justifies the Chiefs not paying Justin Reed after this season. I think this will probably be Justin Reed's last season with the Chiefs. They tend to do that with their veteran safeties 3 and out. You know, the same thing happened with Tyrann Mathieu. Got a 3-year deal. Yeah. Once the 3-year deal was done, they let him walk. I think that's probably what's going to happen with Justin Reed. And again, because I think Jaden Hicks is going to show this dude is a badass. So I like that you're watching out for him. Curtis Jacobs is absolutely a guy I'm paying attention to. I want to see. I definitely, if Curtis makes the team, he's going to be a very slow developed player. I don't expect to see a lot of him in his rookie campaign. I think he'd be a guy that probably makes special teams, gets opportunity there. But it would take at least 2 injuries to like Nick Bolton, to Drew Tranquil, maybe even a Leo Chenal before we were to see Curtis Jacobs really take on some real role on this defense. So I'm not as optimistic to see him this season, even though I really do like the player and I like the addition of the player. I like that pickup because the kid is a tackling machine. And if we know anything about the way the Chiefs developed Nick Bolton and what he is, it's very similar to that as well. So.
Yeah, my 2 guys I'm watching the camp aren't even rookies. It's Chamari Connor and it's Nico Remigio. Those are the 2 guys I want to see evolve. Obviously, Chamari Connor's making a roster spot here. I think Chamari Connor is the truth. I think he's a stud, and I think but I want to see it. You know what I mean? I want to see him as that guy take on that leadership role with the L'Jarius Sneed vacancy. I want to see him become that guy, maybe be better, possibly. I'm really looking forward to watching that and see what he becomes. With this opportunity for him and his career. And then obviously Nico Remigio, I want to see him or any receiver become something at camp. That'd be cool. Anything, man. Anybody catching a ball, making a play, and cheers, and just running with the ball in their hands, not fumbling it or tipping it. Something like that. That'd be cool. So those are the things I'm looking for, and those are the names I'm looking at. So I'm not. The rookies are going to battle it out. We all know that, but those are the guys that have been here, a couple seasons now. Now making this, there's these 2 second-year guys into something. Those are the 2 guys I'm eyeing the most. Next question from our guy Noah John Marshall. Will Travis Kelce take a game off this year purely for rest, not Week 17 or lame duck week situation?
I mean, that's obviously hard to project. I think if all things are the same, and let's say the Chiefs are still in the hunt for the 1 seed, I don't envision Travis Kelce doing that. Because as we remember, Travis Kelce took off that last week of the season primarily because the Chiefs couldn't move out of the 3 seed.
Yeah.
So because of the fact they couldn't move out of the 3 seed, it made really no sense for Travis Kelce to play. We know that Chris Jones played, but Chris Jones was playing for that incentive money, which he ended up getting. So I think if Travis Kelce and the team are still fighting for a top seed, I don't expect in any scenario that Travis Kelce sits a game, especially if he's healthy enough to play. But if they lock up the 1 seed, lock up the 2 seed, and it's week 16 and the season's not over yet, but they've locked up they've locked up the division and no one can really take them down. They're up, they're up 2-3 games before the season's up. Possibly, I could see that, but Travis is such a gamer. There has to be a very special scenario for him to not play.
Yeah, I think he proved this past season that he's not as much worried about his personal accolades anymore, more than he is, the postseason and what that, getting another 1,000-yard season in the regular season. I think he showed that he's kind of past that stuff. So if we do have our seed locked up or first seed or home field or whatever,
it's just not a
I don't
top
think he
priority.
plays. Yeah, I don't think he plays if we have that stuff locked up. If we have the 1 seed in the home in the first round bye locked up, there's no reason. And I honestly wouldn't want him to play.
Yeah.
I think
Mahomes shouldn't play.
Well, I
Chris
mean,
Jones
and just
shouldn't
showing
play.
what that game off before the postseason did for him last year.
Right.
I mean, give me more of that, bro. So I think he's kind of shown he's working a little smarter than he is harder these days. James T. Kirk. Some folks are saying that Baltimore will have a down year this year. Do you two agree?
Well, we're not going to give you our predictions yet, James. Damn it! You know that we don't do that.
We're missing
You're
the
slick
playoff.
though. You think you're slick. You think you're slick, Mr. Kirk. You ain't that slick, homie. We give you guys our predictions in September, as we always do, the week before the season kicks off. We're going to keep that consistent. But what I will say is I do think it will be very challenging for the Ravens to have a season like they had last year when they lose such an important piece of their defense with their defensive coordinator. And not only that,
the roster's still so loaded.
they replaced him, though, with a 31-year-old defensive coordinator, a guy that's very inexperienced.
Yep.
That's a big thing. And there's a lot of weird things going on with Lamar Jackson this offseason. I'm not really sure what it is, so maybe it could be nothing.
Looking small.
But he's lost a lot of weight, and he says that somehow that's going to be better for him, even though quarterbacks shouldn't lose weight because you're going to be getting hit a lot, especially as a mobile quarterback.
His style,
And the fact that he didn't show up to OTAs, which to me that's just a bad look as a leader of the team when you just got a massive haul of money just this last offseason. You know that you're a team that's on the precipice of contending for a Super Bowl. I would prefer my quarterback to be there. And maybe, like I said, maybe it's a non-story, but the Ravens, like Trevor said, are so stacked. You almost like want to always pencil them in as a postseason team. But I do think as far as what they were last season, it's very hard to replicate that when you have as much influx as they've had. The positive is they just absolutely signed a monster at running back in Derrick Henry, which is going to help a lot of things on the offensive side. But their defense did take a hit in losing one of their safeties to the Steelers and their defensive coordinator. So I expect it to be a very challenging season for the Ravens to try to replicate what they did last year for sure.
I mean, I'll say this too. I mean, that we all know that division is probably the most really tough, nasty division of football. Those teams just feast on each other, right? There's always good games between those teams. There are always hard-fought battle games. Any of those teams can beat any of those teams at any game.
It's a bar fight.
Yeah. So I love that division. It's fun to watch. Very competitive teams. But I think the teams around them got better too, right? I do, regardless of what you thought about, the Steelers last year, I think they did get better at quarterback, regardless of what you think about Russ. I think they got better at quarterback. I think they got, I think all those teams are going to be healthier, obviously. I think if Joe Burrow can step up and remain healthy, that's a whole different thing there too. But the vibe feels like there's a letdown looming for the Ravens this year. I think they achieved really, they especially coming off that, the way they lost to us was a very just rough way to lose a game because they couldn't do anything.
And it was at home.
Like it took some plays to break down for, guys to break open deep shot on us. A couple times they got a couple of those on us. Nothing special. Lamar caught a damn pass to himself just to remain competitive in that game.
Yeah.
We weren't special offensively in that game either, but our defense was unbelievable and Lamar couldn't do shit. Right. And now he's smaller. I don't know, man. I think that division's going to really beat them up a little bit this season. Could they still win the division? Of course. They're still the most talented team in that division in my mind still. But things could really, I think, go south quickly for them. And they did get Derrick Henry, but he's also not a young man, right?
Yeah,
and that's a team that's going to run the ball a lot like they always do. And granted, Derrick Henry is just different. You talk about unicorns. That's one of those guys, a unicorn at running back. So who knows, man? But if I'm guesstimating, I think they still should be a very competitive team. But I think a late season slump is definitely looming. I think they can fall off towards, week 11, 12 or something like that. So we'll see. We'll see, man. But as of right now, they are definitely a competent foe, and I think they proved that last season. James T. Kirk, will there be a spoken podcast from the Chiefs training camp?
We usually don't do that at camp because the Chiefs are pretty tidy about that. They like to have media credentialed and things of that nature. So unless Starcade gets us credentialed, ask Noah and ask Clint about that. Trevor and I will go up there, give our assessments either from there, pre-recorded, or we'll come back and do a show and give you guys our reactions to it like we did last season when I went up there and did that with the whole Justin Ross thing. Either way, though, you guys will be getting plenty of content from us when it comes to training camp and what we think is going on. And we'll give you guys our official 53-man rosters. We'll give you guys our predictions, our takeaways, everything that we've been doing for the last 5 years here. We're going to keep that ball rolling. So make no mistake about it. You guys will be getting plenty of honest and authentic coverage from Chiefs training camp here at the Spoken Podcast.
Next one from our guy James. Next and last one from our guy James G. Kirk. Should the Chiefs consider bringing back Frank Clark or even Tyrann Mathieu once his contract ends after this season with the Saints?
No, because I don't really think that either one of those guys do anything for this defense. Frank Clark is shot.
Yeah. I mean, I love my boy Frank Clark.
Yeah, but he's shot.
Yeah,
he's done. And Tyrann, I think Tyrann's still a good football player.
Yeah, he played well last year.
I just don't know if he really where he fits in the defense. And it's also a weird thing too. Like when you're no longer the alpha. Like, if he was to come back to Kansas City, he's no longer the guy he was brought in here to be back in 2019.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be a good idea for Tyrann. I think he would love to be in Kansas City, but under different pretenses. I just don't think either one of those.
I think that bridge is a little burnt too. Not in a negative way. I just think that bridge was mutually burnt because there was no contract even extended his way. No extension. From Veach at all. When his last days were here. So I think that's kind of like, for a player, I think that's like, you guys didn't even want me at all. Outside of like McColl's situation, it was better for him to be here. But and obviously it worked out for both parties. But I think Tyrann's just he's going to be another year older too, a step slower. He's never been like a freak athlete as far as like being a fast guy. He's always been like just a bright mind as far as knowing how to be at the right place at the right time. But he's just not the same guy he was. And like you said, I think he was brought here to change the culture and the attitude, and he 100% did that. And I'm thankful for him for being that guy to do that here. So
we did have
served his time and his purpose.
We did have a couple questions I wanted to get to as well, though, from our guy 𝚂𝙿𝙸𝚂𝙾𝙺.
Yep.
He asked and I wanted to get your thoughts on this one, Trevor. I'm going to start from the second question and then go to the first. Second question is the NBA question. He asks, should the Spurs go after DeRozan? I'll say this real quick. Any team that's hoping to contend next year should go after DeMar DeRozan.
That was going to be my answer too. Yeah.
I mean, dude's averaging almost 25 a game this last season, 4 or 5 assists. He's not young. I think he's 34 years old, but he's still a very, very capable player.
Still one of the best scorers in the mid-range area.
I think
the basket.
If the Spurs are trying to build something around Wemby and try to get to the playoffs,
it's a great ad.
DeRozan would be one hell of a get.
Yeah.
He's played there before. He's played there before with the Spurs, so it makes sense.
Chris Paul too is a great, savvy point guard for that team. Yeah, I think DeRozan's a guy you can plug in, like you said, to any team.
Right.
I think he makes sense for any team because he's a guy that scores differently. He's like an old school throwback kind of player.
Right.
He's more like that Rip Hamilton, obviously a much better athlete than Rip Hamilton, but a similar player, the way he scores back to the basket, a lot of fadeaway, mid-range jumpers, stop and pop mid-range jumpers, a great finisher at the rack. Purist of the game love guys like DeRozan. He's just a tough as nails kind of guy, won't back down from anybody, a solid defender, just a guy that's a true gamer. And I think any team would benefit. I think I actually heard before the show, a couple hours before the show, that the Kings are actually a dark horse to bring him over to Sacramento. They would be a great fit for this team.
Maybe they'll get the play-in tournament.
Yeah, that'd be great. Maybe taste the sweet nectars of the playoffs again so we can get swept. That'd be fun.
The other question our guy 𝚂𝙿𝙸𝙂𝙀 had, do you think Rashid will be put on the commissioner's exempt list or get his suspension before that, or before the trial? I do think the suspension is coming before the trial because technically Roger Goodell doesn't have to wait for the trial to do what he needs to do.
And this happened so early on in the offseason.
And we know that he's already violated certain things in the NFL code of conduct. And so I do expect it. I will say this, and I stay consistent on this. I don't anticipate that we'll see the suspension come down before week 1. I think it's going to be somewhere between like week 3 and week 5. A random time. We saw this with Willie Gay. We saw this with Frank Clark. It's some portion middle of the season where these guys get handed down a big hit. And I do think Rashi's going to miss.
I hope it's in a Menahu situation, honestly, though. I hope he just gets out of the way early.
I would love that, but I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. I think you're going to see Rashi play the first month of the season, and then week 4, week 5, when the Chiefs have a big matchup coming up with whoever it is, I don't even know who it is. I guarantee you'll see Adam Schefter drop some bomb that Chiefs wide receiver Rashee Rice has been suspended for 6 to 8 games for the violations.
68 games.
Yeah, I think it's going to be between 6 to 8 games.
Yeah.
I really do, guys. I would love it to be less than that, and maybe he can appeal it and get it down. But I just think with the multiple situations, I know that the photographer guy dropped the case. It's still such a bad look when you just did something a month ago.
Yeah.
I think that putting people's lives at risk, especially like I said, when you just had Henry Ruggs' situation go down a year previous where he killed that lady and her dog in a residential area of Vegas, him serving his time. I think that Goodell wants to make a point. And to be honest with you guys, as shitty as this might sound, I kind of hope that Goodell makes a point with this one because I want players in the future to learn from this mistake that Rashi made. And I want Rashi to learn from this mistake because I think if he gets a slap on the wrist, there's a chance it happens again. That's only based upon what we've seen him already do. He doesn't get the benefit of the doubt anymore. Yeah. But I think if he misses a third of the season or more, I think Rashi's going to learn his lesson because he knows how important, vital he is to this team. If he knows he puts his team in this type of position for 6 to 8 weeks, then he knows that hurt his teammates.
Yeah.
And I think he's a good kid. I think he fucked up really bad. Made a really stupid decision. Made a couple stupid decisions.
Listen to some bad influence,
yes,
probably. Yeah.
But hopefully this will teach him. And I think that the more severe this punishment is, the more he will learn from it. So I think it's going to be pretty severe. And I think it'll be probably, like I said, after that first chunk of the season begins. I think probably the first week of October, we'll probably learn about the suspension.
All right, threw one last question in. Thoughts on Bronny going to the Lakers?
Nepotism. This here's the thing, guys. I said all along Bronny was gonna make the league.
Yeah.
And it's not just because of his father, it's because of the fact this dude has the skill set to make the league. Do I know or do I think that he's gonna be some star in this league? No. But I do think that Bronny has the potential to be a 3-and-D type of guy. He's a good shooter.
Yeah.
He's got a good frame, even though he's only 6'2".
I think he'd be a good on-ball defender too.
Well, yeah, and you got to remember he's only 18 years old. He's 6'2", 215 pounds. Guys, he can easily become a guy that's 6'6", 225 pounds. That could by next year, because the male body doesn't stop growing until they're 25. So Bronny's got another 7 years of growth, and his father, with the genetic freak that he is, who's to say that Bronny doesn't become 6'8"? Who knows? So I'm honing in my expectations of him being a star player, but I definitely think he's deserving of making the league because we've seen several guys throughout history have worse careers than Bronny did in college. And let's be real, two things were against him at USC. One, they were a guard-ridden team. They had tons of guards on that team. They were more experienced than Bronny, so he wasn't going to make it on that team and play a lot of minutes. And two, the man had literally cardiac arrest. Like, we should look at this as a success story that he overcame that. That's a significant thing. Could have killed him. Yeah. And he overcame that, and I'm happy for the kid. I'm excited to see him and LeBron become the first father and son duo to ever play together in NBA history. Like I said this, I believe this was last week when I was talking about Ken Griffey and Ken Griffey Jr. No matter whether they became great players or not, or were great players or not, these are great stories, and they need to be celebrated. I think that the James family should be celebrated. They have been nothing but consistent class personified.
Yeah.
They've been nothing but respectful. They've been nothing but successful. And I think that they need to be commended for this. They raised 2 boys and a daughter as well to become successful adults. And I think this needs to be respected, that Bronny worked his ass off. Yes, nepotism is a part of this. Nepotism is a part of everything in business. Across the board. Every one of us know people, and you might be one of them, that made it because of a father you have or a mother you have.
Please tell me if you were LeBron, you would not do the exact same thing to make sure your son reaches the pinnacle of his capabilities and what he worked his whole life for. So
100%.
Oh, duh. Every parent would want to do that, bro. And it ain't like Bronny, he hasn't earned it, like you said. Like
he's
his kid
good.
Busted his ass. He's been great at the draft camps and all those things.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? So the combines, he's been killing it at the combines. Wasn't the best college player, but I don't think that's what really matters here. I mean, that doesn't always. That's not always the thing. But I will go on record to say I think his brother Bryce is better than I think his brother Bryce is going to earn it, and I think he's going to have a lot more respect coming in the league because I think the kid is an absolute stud in the making, and he's bigger and he's faster and So Bryce is going to be a baller. But yeah, that's it for the questions, man.
Awesome, guys. We appreciate the segment as always. If you've not already done it, we tell you at the top and the bottom of every single show. We feel it's always the right time to say it now because the chiming in was incredible today, as always. Get on our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com, hit the Spoken Podcast, subscribe to our channel. Guys, we're so close to 500 subscribers. We're trying to get to 1,000, so we're about halfway there. But we believe that we can get there. We will get there with your guys' help. So go there, hit subscribe, hit notify, share, like, comment, all that stuff, because we definitely want to continue to do this with you guys. That's the only way we're going to be able to continue to do this is you guys are a part of it. So thank you for being a part of this chat and making this segment so awesome, making the show so awesome. Trevor, we have one more order of business to get to. What is it called? Hold this L. Each and every episode, we finish off every single episode of with a series of L's in the world of sports. Whether those L's are friendly L's in the world of sports or not so friendly L's in the world of sports, we promise you, who's ever holding those L's in the world of sports deserve those L's in the world of sports. Trevor Twidwell, who's holding the L for you this week?
Well, listen, man, I was going to have an L situation towards the people that are kind of preying on the downfall of Bronny James. And I just kind of wanted to stray away from that because there was some news that broke before the show, and I don't want to make this into a somber show at this moment, but it's going to be. I just want to honor the life of some people's lives, or honor the lives of these young men that actually passed hours before we got this show going this morning. If you guys didn't see the news, I was just going to give my L time to this. Vikings rookie cornerback Kyrie Jackson, who was drafted in the 4th round, among 3 killed in a car crash this morning. Minnesota Vikings rookie cornerback Kyrie Jackson and 2 former college football players were killed in a car crash overnight, according to Maryland State Police. Jackson was 24. Jackson died after a 3-car crash that occurred at 3:14 a.m. Saturday in Prince George's County, according to police. Isaiah Hazel and Anthony Lighton Jr., the 2 former players who were high school teammates of Jackson's, were also killed in the crash, police said. Hazel, 23, played at Maryland and Charlotte, while Lighton, 24, played at Florida State and Penn State. Police said Hazel was driving a Dodge Charger with Jackson in the passenger seat when their car was struck by an Infiniti Q50 attempting to change lanes at a high speed. The Charger left the road and struck multiple tree stumps. According to the police, Jackson and Hazel were pronounced dead at the scene, while Lighton was transported to a hospital before being pronounced dead by hospital personnel. Neither the driver of the Infiniti Q50 nor her 2 passengers or the driver of the 3rd vehicle was injured. Investigators believe alcohol may have played a role in the crash, police said, adding that charges are pending. This is the people that hit them. Jackson was selected by the Vikings in the 4th round of this year's draft and had been considered a contender to start at cornerback for them this season. We are devastated by the news of Kyrie Jackson's death following an overnight car accident, the Vikings said in a statement. Our thoughts are with Kyrie's family, friends, teammates, and coaches, as well as all the victims of this tragic accident. Jackson played his final season of college football at Oregon, and the Ducks coach Dan Lanning was among those paying his tribute to Jackson on social media. R.I.P. Kyrie, love you. At a loss for words, I will miss your smile. Great player, better person. Dan Lanning. Yeah, man, this is just as soon as a young man's dreams was getting going, and he was, out, joyriding with his friends, and some of his teammates that he played football with in his younger years. Was just getting ready to get his career started, and was robbed by someone who was switching lanes illegally, possibly intoxicated. Who knows what the report is going to be once it all comes out. Just a tragic situation, man. 3 young men are dead now. One was a promising prospect for the Vikings to possibly be a starter in the NFL this season. His rookie year at a tough position that's very competitive at cornerback, especially a need for them as well. And I just mourn for his family. I couldn't imagine. I mean, I know I've seen a lot of young guys, even play football out here locally that have either made it to the collegiate stages or even. There's some guys that have made it out locally here that have had, good NFL careers. And that's, I couldn't imagine seeing them robbed and fall short, by a tragic accident like this before they even got the chance to even taste what that felt like, and let alone their families being able to celebrate those situations. And it's just, like I said, I didn't want to make this show. I didn't want to bring the show down, but I felt, the need to address, the life's lost here. It's just something that, I take seriously, and I mourn for their families. I can only imagine the pain that they're feeling right now. So I just wanted to give some of my energy to that, and just say my condolences, and then to the families, and hopefully justice is served for whatever caused this tragedy. So that's all I got, man.
Well said, man. That's horrible. That's no other way of putting it.
And hopefully you can lighten the mood back up a little bit.
I've been known to do that, but yeah, it did need to be addressed, and I appreciate you bringing that up, man. So my L is something that it needs to be addressed as well, but in a much different way, because when you get paid a lot of money, and I've always been somebody that says, look, if the market's there for you, teams want you, and the money's always going to be there for you, go get it and go get as much of it as you can. I will never hate on another man going out and get as much money as he possibly can. I swear to you, I'd never have hated on a man for doing that.
Yeah.
Paul George has got himself paid again. And I mean paid again by the 76ers.
How did he do it?
It was the worst mistake. It was the worst secret kept all offseason because we knew Joel Embiid was hinting at it. Yeah. We knew Paul George was interested in it, and I think it's a good move for the Sixers because he is an obvious upgrade from Tobias Harris. Good scorer, good defender. All those things are a factor. Paul George is now made with this new contract in place $517 million in his career. Okay, over $500 million in his career. Paul George has never played in the finals. Paul George is now 34 years old. And Paul George has had one season where he's averaged more than 25 points per game. This is the part where it gets uncomfortable because we have to start asking the question, are these people worth the money they're making? And in my opinion, there's no way in hell Paul George is worth $500 million. Is he a gifted basketball player? Yes. Have I enjoyed watching Paul George's entire career? Yes. Very good basketball player. But he's never been great. Not one single moment of his career. This is the biggest reason why when he went to the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, what was the first thing I said to you, Trevor, when that happened? They will never win a thing.
Yeah, name that great Paul George moment.
They never will win a thing because Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion, aren't great basketball players. They're very good basketball players. It fell into place for Kawhi Leonard back with the Raptors in 2019. That was a perfect storm because the Warriors lost not one but two of their superstar players in that series.
The Bucks fell apart.
Yeah, Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant both lost to leg injuries. Mm-hmm. The Raptors had a perfect scenario.
The Warriors fell apart,
Yeah, they fell apart. That's the only reason why Kawhi Leonard won that title. Kawhi Leonard also won a title with the Spurs because he had three other Hall of Famers surrounding him. Paul George has had a plethora of talent around him, and he's had multiple opportunities to get to somewhere, and he hasn't. He's on a show this week, and he said something very, I don't even want to call it interesting. I thought it was absolutely hilarious because Paul George is now looking at this as if he's being slandered incorrectly or unfairly because of his shortcomings in his career. Let's go ahead and play that video.
I hear the noise, and it's just, it's gotten to a point where, like, at some point, all right, now you woke the bully. I have to bully.
So Paul George is now the bully.
Oh, no.
So 34-year-old Paul George, he waited this long. So he's like the guy, Trevor and I knew a kid back in high school who would, play you one-on-one and you'd beat him. All right, I'm playing for real now. And then you'd beat him again. Oh, no, for real, dude. Like, I'm done playing around. It's for real. And you'd beat him again. Like, that's what Paul George is. And I'm not even trying to, diss the dude. Because, like I said, it sucks to say this because he's like one of those borderline guys that could make the Hall of Fame. Like, he's like that good. But he's, like Trevor said, what's that one moment that Paul George has? Like, I still think to this point of his career, he has zero buzzer beater make shots in his postseason career.
Oh, yeah, he's not good in the clutch.
He's played like 84, 85 postseason games in his career. And he has zero, memorable moments. And now he wants to say he hears the noise and now the bully needs to be the bully. Okay. That's that. Okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Bully season.
Bully waited till he got $500 million to be the bully because that doesn't make much sense to me because to be honest with you, bro, when you make the kind of money you got now, I have a hard time imagining that the hunger is going to become better or greater as you now have aged another year and have made another $100 million. But we'll see.
And how convenient is it for him to say the bully thing when he knows he's going to a true bully, joining with the true bully and Joel Embiid?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, when was the last time Paul George had to be the guy?
Yeah.
Indiana?
Joel Embiid is like the bully of the league.
Think about it. For the last 7 years of Paul George's career, he's been the sidekick. OKC with the Clippers, and now the Sixers.
Right.
It's been since he was in his 20s.
He's always had his guys to hold him back.
And what happened when he was in his 20s? What happened when he was in his 20s? When he had to be the guy, he couldn't be the guy. So, Bully,
you're not that guy.
do me a solid and hold the bell. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Been a good talk, guys. Been fun with you guys. The chat was unreal. This has been a long week. It's been hot as shit. It's tiring. Life can be tiring, but we do this because we have fun with you guys every single week. We hope you guys are having fun every single week. That's why we do this thing. We have so much going on coming up soon. I swear, man, when late July hits, early August, that's when things start to really pop off. So I hope you guys are ready. I know I'm trying to get as much rest as I possibly can for it because, like I said, once football season's here, man, we're going to be in full swing, full motion. We'll have the best guests imaginable for you guys. We'll have some great content for you guys. So you might as well hit us up on YouTube, subscribe now, become a part of this, join into the conversation as much as possible. And I would very much appreciate that because we love having every single one of you guys. You are what makes this thing great. And if you haven't already, I always tell people on the show as well. Every Tuesday, 6 p.m., Arrowhead Allies. We have a great show there. We have great guests. I have no idea who we're having on this week, but I'm sure it's going to be like Bill Clinton or something. It's always a big guest, so we'll see. Maybe it's George Bush. I don't know, to keep it like diplomatically correct. PC. Maybe some politics. Maybe no politics at all. Maybe we'll have another Chiefs legend on there. The fact is, we always have a blast. Always have a great conversation, and we keep the ball rolling there, man. Stargate Media as a whole, we're really rolling. We're getting things going. Get some really good shows on this platform, and we are here just to continue to help further that notion. So, in the meantime, guys, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you guys had a great time. We're going to get the hell up out of here so you guys can enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and we're going to do the same. So, for Trevor Twidwell, who's finally back, for the great Clay Wendler that puts all this together on the back end of things, I'm Lance Twidwell. Spoken Podcast, episode 274 is done. Finished and finito. And so we're back here in 1 week's time for episode 275. We out of this bitch.
Later.
Bully.